Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hotline League. I am back in the States, and hopefully I won't be soon followed by Team Liquid and FlyQuest, but we're going to find out in the next couple of days. Regardless, I'm joined right now by Cubby, as always. Cubby, how's it going?
I'm good. Worlds has been fun. I'm all caught up on review now as of today. So I've been talking for like the last 6 hours, but excited to talk for another 2. Should be fun.
Yes. Well, not just 2, because immediately after this episode, for 30 minutes, we're going to be doing a Worlds prediction show, which is sponsored by PrizePicks. So stick around for that afterwards. And if you're listening to the VOD or you are listening to the audio, just know that we're going to be doing 8 of these over the next 3 or so weeks. And so those will be up on the YouTube channel. So if you'd like to catch those, please do so, because we'll be doing those for almost every day, I think, of Worlds. Regardless, we've got 2 wonderful guests here today. We have, first off, Jamada. Jamada, what time is it there?
3:11 a.m.
3:11 a.m. And it should have been 3, but our next guest was a little sleepy. And we're joined right now by Raz. Raz, how are you feeling? You just woke up.
I'm feeling well. I've never been more awake. And let it be known, Jamada is always up at this hour because he has no friends in his time zone. He actually has no damn friends in his own time zone. Let it be known.
Actually, false. The priority is my loving partner who lives in Texas. So I'm actually up this late because I have a heart, Raz. Thank you. I hope you guys are ready for the next 2 hours.
Oh, shit.
I'm ready for the next 2 hours. I think this will be very fun. So I'm looking forward to it. Well, either way, yeah, Raz, you told me that you had messaged me when I asked you to be on the show, and you said, I fixed my sleep schedule.
And I thought I did, but let's just say I was wrong. Yeah. Oh, fuck me. I actually slept for like 4 hours, too.
Yeah, you're so doomed. I got back yesterday, and I took a 2-hour nap, then I woke up for dinner, ate, and then slept for like another 11 hours or something. And so...
That's not bad, actually.
I'm completely good. I woke up today at 11. I think I went to bed last night at midnight or so. And so I think I'm just completely good because it's 7 o'clock and I'm feeling fine. And I feel like by around 12 or 1 tonight, I should be good to go to sleep. And hopefully I'll wake up in time for FlyQuest crushing it in the morning. Anywho, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors, NZXT, PrizePicks, and Pagoda joining us for our Worlds coverage, which is very exciting. Fun things to talk about for all 3 of those sponsors. We'll have that over the course of this episode. But yeah, I am back, Cubby. I have returned for the next 3 weeks. I go back for finals, but had a pretty good time in Berlin, was ready to head back. I will say, as much as I love Worlds and the games are amazing and all that stuff, it is just so different from what this has been like, pre-COVID. I don't know if I'll ever go back to the magic of pre-COVID Worlds where I just get to go to these other countries, have a great time, be in all these different cities, and the vibes just being immaculate. I think having it in, they did a really good job with the LEC studio. I always want to applaud the folks who work incredibly well under constraints, but it is just a different beast whenever you're like, okay, I'm normally at the LCS studio covering Worlds covering LCS every week, and now I'm at the LEC studio covering Worlds. It's just a bit of a different beast, but yeah, happy to be back.
Well, how was the Berlin food, Travis? I know we had quite the food.
Oh, yeah.
So, pretty, look, I think on the whole, Berlin food, not great. But what I've discovered is that much like London, there are these little spaces every now and then just scattered throughout the city where you can find really good food. And so I had an amazing breakfast with Drew, who normally does not like breakfast, and we went to a place called Benedict that I had been at a long time ago, and he said it was so good that he thought it was like the best breakfast he's ever had. It was so good. And then went to Shocks, took me to a pretty good place called Checkers, and also went to there was a really good pizza place that we had. So on the whole, you can find the good food. It's just, going into random places, it's going to be pretty mid. Also, I don't know what is up with Berlin, but like a lot of their places just have bees in them. And the bees will just be on the food. Did you not see this at all, Raz? I saw this at multiple places.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So are you
they just act like it's
anti-pollen?
completely fine that there's bees on the food.
You're anti-bee, Travis? They're gonna save the universe, bees.
I'm not. I think bees have a time and a place, and on the food is not.
Now, that just feels like propaganda right now, and I don't think the government of Berlin and Germany will not appreciate the whole idea that there's
propaganda for who? For who? Like what? What would be the goal of bees on the
food?
Yeah. Anyway,
the only thing that's good there is the kebabs. Look, like
preach.
Once again, I have been in Berlin, and all I've eaten there was kebabs.
Dude, I just don't like kebabs. I had it again. And it's not for me.
I love Donners over there. They're too good.
That's the same thing.
Just out of curiosity, what? Yeah, it is.
What are you, a vegetarian?
Well, so like in Berlin, like you can get kebab, which most people would kind of consider like skewered, like meat and things like that. Some vegetables as well. But we're talking about Donners, because that's what you get Donners out of that's I would call the boss man shops, and that is exactly, it is the real shit. Yeah. So what is it about Donners that doesn't quite rub you the right way, Travis? Because they are more or less like, because you can pick what you put in them, right? It's pretty much just bread, meat, and like a vegetable or 3 of your choice.
So one, I think that people really like them because of the sauce, and they like cover them in sauce, and like I don't like the sauce. And then I think I also don't like the spices that they use in the meat and stuff. So I don't know. I will say the one I had this time was a little bit less offensive, but generally speaking, I prefer tacos and sandwiches. Like I just think those are way better than. I mean, I feel American. I think Doner is it Doner? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
I
feel like Doner is like the Berlin version of like LA's tacos, and I just think tacos are so much better. Big fan of tacos. Man. All right. Anywho, we should talk about Worlds.
Okay, so, I'm just saying, you started the show by pissing people off immediately. So
I mean, that's what you got to do these days. All right, you got to get attention. Listen, we're doing this on a Wednesday. Viewership is historically low for this episode right now because I think a lot of people expect it to be on Mondays, and instead, we're kind of throwing people off. I gotta get conversation going. I need everybody to be like, Travis is pissing people off by shitting on food and calling Raz out for being late.
This is the first time. This is literally the first time, by the way.
Let's go around the table and talk about what we've thought of Worlds so far. What surprised you? What's excited you? Just like a short little summary of your impressions so far. Cubby, you said you just did a bunch of reviews. So how about you? What do you think?
There's always like a plans meta and then a main stage meta, but I'm really surprised at how fast the meta has evolved. Like Syndra is just out. Callista really rose in priority. Nocturne is like a crazy pick. Aurora, Nocturne, Ahri being like this core is wild. Like I was really surprised at how fast the meta evolved, and then how many times that these teams get to play this just ridiculously OP champion in Yone that it somehow just continues to make it through draft when no answers have been found. So yeah, overall though, I think the tournament's been really good, and I know that the record for the Western teams has been fantastic, but I actually, like, coming into the tournament, I felt that for NA, it was the highest expectation I had since 2016. I know the records don't really show, but I actually feel like the NA teams in G2 have been delivering on that.
Oh man, I
think they've been playing good.
I'll wait till we get to my take. But next up is Raz.
The TL, they played good in the games they lost. Like, they were a couple plays away from winning, and then they did suck against Pain.
But Raz, okay. Let's get to your what's your impressions of World so far? Because you just got back 2 days ago.
Yeah, you guys got like optimistic and pessimistic duo going here. For me, it's definitely been the diversity of the drafts that have been happening, but that's only because of lane swaps. Like that you have the ability to play like Twitch and shit like that. But it's that plus I feel like GAM and PSG and GAM, PSG, Pain have made it competitive, like in their matches. Even though the Pain one is simply because Team Liquid looked like a little bit like ass in some of their games, but I felt like their macro was decent enough to like at least make it look close. So at least the 3 teams coming in from plans have made it pretty close, and that has been good. I mean, Mad literally kicked out or at least Mad got kicked out by Gam. So that's made it fun.
I mean, really impressive from Mad to like find a way to not disappoint by making it, out of groups or like into Swiss, and then still finding a way to disappoint after that. Pretty impressive.
Oh man,
pretty impressive.
Jamada, how about you?
I mean, I'll take the easy answer out. LNG, man. I don't think anyone was thinking this team was going to do as well as they have. Games, the sample size is still relatively small because it was 2-0 into, 2 best of ones into 2-0. But realistically, you ask anyone, I mean, I was here a few weeks ago, you asked me, how do I think LNG is going to do? I literally said they probably are, realistically, our honorary 4th seed, and I said that for a reason. But they're coming to the tournament. They managed to actually get Scout left contract prison. And they played a fantastic game, and they even humiliated BLG on the way. So
they're playing really good.
I'm really, really excited to see exactly how they're going to land in quarters. Them qualling in as well at 3-0, meaning that they're going to get, one of the 3-2 teams. I think that's how the polling works. I can't remember how it was done last year. But one of the teams that's qualling last is also like a very, very big deal. I think especially with so many strong teams still not qualled in. Think, HLE, hopefuls like G2, BLG have to go from 1-2 to try and qual in. That's like a potentially very spooky quarterfinals to walk into on both sides. So I think for me, LNG really does take the cake.
Hung has actually been fucking crazy so far. I feel like I expected them to just have the weakest support jungle. And they've definitely been shutting people up. I like this Poppy a lot.
Yeah, for me, so some takeaways are, one, it has been really cool to see that the wildcard teams or minor regions have looked pretty solid and have been competitive. Like, I do feel as though, even though this, I don't really feel like there have been very many upsets, if maybe any. At least anything that we'd say like a major upset. There have been some surprises, I guess is what I would say. I still feel like all the games for the most part have been really entertaining. I think back on the days of groups, the old format where you just see so many games that would just be like, okay, that was a shitty game, now we go next. It's just teams have all felt fairly competitive, felt really good, and on the whole, it's just been a really solid, good Swiss stage. So that's my take there. On the NA side, I've been kind of disappointed. I really felt like Team Liquid at times have just looked a little lost in their games, and I don't feel like they are playing the way that they play in North America, which is par for the course with our first seeds. I feel like oftentimes we send our first seeds over, and for some reason, they're not the first seed because they lost to FlyQuest, but they were assumed to sort of be the first seed up until finals, and many people, I think, continue to think that they were the strongest team in North America. And I just feel like in a lot of the games they're making mistakes that I don't expect them to make, and they're not playing as clean as I expect them to play. And I would say that even in their losses, there's just times where they should have control of the game and they just lose it randomly or something goes wrong. And I feel like Impact in particular has not been playing the way that we expect them to play. Has just had some strange games and that type of stuff. So I look, part of the reason I say that is because, and I'm sure we'll get into this over the course of the show, but like, I don't know if I can expect Team Liquid to make it out anymore, and I hope that they have to at least play better than they have been to make it out. And that is not what I wanted to be feeling by this point in time in Swiss.
Yeah.
So we will see.
I mean, G2 looks like the strongest team out of the West, but we'll see who TL and FlyQuest both draw at 2-2. We'll put it that way,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So. Anyway, let's get into some calls. So first off, I know we're doing this on a different day. We have perhaps some guests or some callers that are calling in internationally. Do you want to explain how the show works, Cubby?
Yeah, if you guys want to call on in, go to discord.gg/Travis. You can put command Discord in the chat to get there fast too. Hop in, drop your take at me, at Cubby in the Discord, and I'll pull you into the waiting room. And if it's good, and we'll grab you and go from there. So we only have a couple takes so far, so plenty of room to talk up the show. Travis, you want to talk about any of the off-season rumors that have been floating around, or you just want this to be Worlds only?
I think if we want to do like 1 or 2, I'm fine with that. So if we have a couple that I think are particularly spicy, I'm sure with that. Sure, I'm cool with that. But I don't want this to end up being like half and half. I think at least until, at least while North America is still at Worlds, I would love for this show to be primarily focused on Worlds. Once everybody freaks out and is doomering out and it's a bummer and we're all heartbroken, then I think it's time to then maybe we can start to make the show at least 50-50. So we are looking for Worlds takes primarily if that's going to help folks call in. Again, this is a bit our live viewership. I'm sure our VOD viewership and podcast viewership will be fine, but our live viewership is a little low tonight because we're doing this on a Wednesday instead of a Monday because I was literally traveling back on a plane when we normally do the show. So it's all I'm saying is it's a good time to try to get on the show. If you haven't ever been on the show before, we'd love to have you on. Please share your takes. And if you are a sub, make sure that a sub on Twitch or a member on YouTube, make sure that you have that linked up over on Discord so that you can get access to the subtopics channel, which does give you a bit of that channel moves a little slower. It's we try to pull a little bit of folks from there too. So no guarantee, but it does help you get on the show as well. All right. Other than that, I think we might be good. You want to go grab somebody, Cubby?
Yeah, sounds good.
While Cubby's grabbing them, thank you to... We got the RubeTube, America Vespucci, Monstrous, Swede Be Good, gifted a sub to Raz, Trespasser, SJP Esports, Tamain, and Ray Lim. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Really, really do appreciate that. I'm going to fix those Discord noses in a second. I'm sorry to everybody. I know over on YouTube, we also have Lalo Azul, Brian, Dex, KTB, and 504 Caesar. 504 Caesar with a 1999 super chat. Thank you for YouTube. I think it's the first time in a long time that YouTube viewership has been a lot higher than Twitch. So shout out to YouTube folks. Our first guest of the evening is here. Our first caller. It's Gyrojoestar. Gyro, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Houston, Texas. Once again,
Houston, Texas. And what do you want to talk about on the show?
My take is that this is the smallest gap between all regions that we have at Worlds in my memory. With the minor regions and the major regions all being reasonably competitive with each other, especially how the games go, not just the results.
Yeah. So I think I really appreciate this. What do you want to expand on it at all? But it's kind of similar to the vibes that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I'll just say that I've been watching a lot of the minor regions due to PrizePicks because I've been doing a lot of betting and stuff like that. Which has been going pretty well. So for me, I was pretty excited to see all the teams like even in play-ins. But I think, with 100 Thieves losing to R7, and obviously what happened to Mad Lions, it's like pretty easy to see like on the low end. But I think the TL, like if you track TL's trajectory, you can really see this because they've had pretty competitive games against all of their opponents, even the top Eastern teams as well as like the minor region teams. So I think just based off of that, you can kind of see. But even throughout all of the other games, the outside of some of the top Asian teams playing the minor regions, the games have been pretty entertaining. And the Fnatic game was pretty embarrassing. But outside of that, the games have been pretty entertaining and pretty competitive and pretty exciting.
Yeah, awesome. I don't know who wants to chime in on this first, but
okay, you go.
I would ask the caller, do we feel like any regions outside of China and Korea have a legitimate chance to win the tournament? Any teams?
I mean, I think G2 has a legitimate chance to win the tournament. And I think I think it's kind of unfortunate how TL's games went because people are going to say, they choked or whatever. But I think if you really look at the actual games, TL was playing pretty good League of Legends. And I mean, if just save a few mechanical mistakes from the players we obviously know, we could be looking at a much different tournament. So I would say G2 and TL could like a 5% chance for TL and maybe a 10% chance for G2 to win, which honestly is pretty exciting, I would say.
I would say it's pretty unrealistic. Not only like a 5, like you roll a dice and it lands on 20 and Team Liquid wins. I know it's obviously not that it's not that random in terms of how this stuff works, but I just mean like I feel like a 1 in 20 chance of winning Worlds is like pretty generous for Team Liquid after the way that they've played. I mean, maybe from like a copium perspective or hopium perspective, I would have gone into Worlds feeling that way. But I guess I was the one that was just kind of shitting on them a little bit. But I don't feel that way based off of what we've seen from them at Worlds so far. So I don't know. Cubby, to you're suggesting that that Worlds is not close unless, and especially when we're talking about across all the different regions, unless you feel as though all of them have a decent chance, a reasonable chance of winning Worlds.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I think the G2 right now, they look like they should get out of groups, and I think they can top 4 depending on the draw. Like G2 is playing really good league, but I still don't have them like winning the tournament. I think that in order for this to be like the gap is closed, you have to have teams from NA, EU, Brazil, wherever, where you can look at them and be like, hey, this team can win the tournament. If that's not the case, then I don't think that it's fair to say. I will say, I think the minor regions have been getting better, and that's very fair to say. So like shout out to Pain, even R7 like wasn't terrible. GOM has been surprisingly good. PSG for me was a team that I actually could have seen potentially getting out of groups before. They've been worse than what I thought, frankly. Like I respect PSG a lot as a team, but I feel like even their strength is worse than what the PCS has had in the past. So I just don't feel like we've closed the gap to the top enough where it's like, oh my God, this is like the most the gap's been closed. And this is coming from someone where I sincerely feel like this is the best that the Western teams have played in a while in terms of having like a G2 that is very competitive and TL and FlyQuest that are like actual, like have viable chances to make it out of groups.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say this question is a bit of a two-parter in the sense that like the first one is how close is the minor regions to the rest, and I will say yes, it's probably been the closest in some time. PSG is the easiest one because even though in MSI they've had much better success than they've had in Worlds. I remember the COVID era for PSG where that has just been when they've been strong and they've beaten out Team Liquid as well.
Well, like, I'm thinking back to like Flash Wolves too, right?
Maybe that's a good that's a fair one too.
Yeah.
But like PSG this year has like beaten FlyQuest, 100 Thieves, Mad Lions. Like they're now pretty consistently beating a third seed. So that's one. GAM obviously winning versus Mad is a big one, and some of their games have been pretty competitive, and a lot of it has just been their top side is just strong against some of the better teams. There's that. There's Pain. Their game quality, even though Team Liquid looked like shit in that series, like the game quality for Pain has actually been much higher than I've ever expected. Yes. They looked much better than some of the research we did when we were watching them from their finals and playoffs time. Like I just watching a few of their series, I was like, wow, they actually look like they improved massively. So that's definitely the case from the minor region side. So I agree with that. But I don't agree with the whole idea of like us being closer to the Chinese and Korean teams. Like 2019, G2 was literally the favorites, by the way. Like they won MSI and they looked incredibly solid at a world stage level. Like they were a team that people were for the first time ever actually expecting the most out of a Western team, and in this case, like a European team, and how they were playing, because they were beating consistently T1, and so like when they went into the finals, people legitimately thought that they would win, and I don't want people to like kind of rewrite history and the expectation that people had in G2 at that time, because that was the first time there was like a legitimate shot since like I guess the belief in season 2 that they could do it. So I think 2019 for me will be the Worlds where there was a real expectation. Whereas here, man, one of the teams we thought was catchable is just simply not. LNG looks stronger than they did domestically. Weibo is the one team that seems like is very much in reach easily.
Yeah.
T1 looks much better than they did domestically. I think
D plus in reach,
harder.
kind of. Like
exactly.
D plus is messy, but they're good.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree with that one too. So it's like those teams are within reach, but the other teams that we thought were reachable in T1 and LNG were just not. And maybe G2 ends up taking T1, you know, and that expectation is still alive, but they looked really good.
Jamada.
Brother, I think you're smoking. I don't know what I've been watching. Look, this is, and I mean it with as little disrespect as possible. I think that the one thing you've got right here is that for sure the minor regions look far better and closer to the weaker Western teams, NA and European teams than we've ever seen before. And then it's basically the Eastern teams and G2, and then there's there's like, it's like Eastern teams, small gap, G2, small gap, the rest of the West. And that's kind of just how I see it here. And I will also say, just on a brief note, because we touched on PSG a good couple of times, can we pull one out for that team? Because they drew Hard My Life in round 1.
Yeah.
They got a good draw with Mad. But then FlyQuest into BLG, like, they haven't had an easy road. Like, I kind of feel bad for them. If they rolled slightly better.
Yeah, I thought they could have gotten out, actually.
Yeah, like that is the nature of Swiss. Like, I could have definitely seen them going, all 5, or was it 6 rounds in Swiss? I think it's 5, right? Because you're going to go 2-3, 3-2. So all 5 rounds. Unfortunately, we'll see how they do against PSG, against BLG, because I think PSG definitely are a team that have seemingly at this tournament, with a little bit of exception against Halma, played to the level of their opponent, and they did it a lot in play-ins as well. It's why we saw them look kind of shaky there. Everyone's going to think to the MSI, obviously, where PSG took BLG the distance. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I'm hoping that BLG have woken the fuck up. But yeah, I think that the most reasonable take here is that G2 are like the Western team, seemingly, that are capable of contesting the Eastern teams on a very regular basis. I don't rest of the panel, I just don't have faith in your teams. And the rest of our team, well, Mad's gone home already. Well, they didn't really have to go anywhere. Yeah. And Fnatic, don't say that you weren't happy with the draft, or bad things may happen to you, more or less. That's kind of it. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
I know. So a lot of this is about whether or not these teams are close enough to contest for like finals or quarterfinals or something. But am I crazy for feeling as though, from a gameplay and in-game competition standpoint, this is the closest Swiss or groups that we've ever had? Because it feels as though the teams, when they play against each other, feel like there's not have we had many stomps? Am I crazy in feeling
no,
we haven't?
I think this is a symptom of two things. I think a lot of the draws that we've had on paper have actually just been really hard to call. Like, unironically, I think that the draws have actually been really fair to most teams except for PSG. And then also lane swaps still being here, and the general way that lane swaps are being used in this meta comparatively to, maybe older metas, or at least the perception has shifted on lane swaps as less of a like getting a carry out of a bad matchup or denying a carrier a matchup entirely, to kind of just confirming that a mid game happens, right? So unless you end up in some really horrible lane swap scenario where you just magically fall like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 gold behind and the game's not playable, lane swaps kind of just stalemate out into one carry has loads of gold, the other carry has loads of gold, and the top laners are probably homeless, and then you just play out the game from there. Yeah. So I think that's kind of why we've ended up in a lot of these far more hotly contested games, like game state wise.
I think also, and I mean, this is going to be a great ad for Freak, but I think the introduction of Grubs make things actually feel a lot closer. Like, back in past Worlds, and how the game worked, at least like for the last 3, 4, or 5 years, was if you had the better early game team, you would take a 5:30 Drake into an 8:30 Rift, into an 11-minute Drake, and then the real action started afterwards at either second Herald or third Drake, right? And a lot of teams were picking, we're going to fight on Mythics, or we're going to fight on 2-3 items. And that was like a really like high-level baseline of how the game is played, right? I do think that Grubs were a great addition to the game to break this and to actually give another lever to pull on the other side of the map. And it's part of why we're seeing map play be so much more fluid now than what it was for the past, because you actually have to shift to the other side of the map, right? So I do think that as a game balance perspective has created a lot more interesting worlds, because you at least have a trade to make on the other side of the map, and the games have gotten so much more less scripted, even with lane swaps, which might puzzle some fans, but I do think that compared to the very scripted out, I can early Drake and early Herald and early Drake again in the maybe second Herald, and then we'll see if we fight or not, right? So many games were like that in the past, And so many teams just get a 2K gold lead off that and then never look back. So I think the introduction of Grubs like actually gives a lot more play patterns that are available in the game.
Grubby, I wouldn't. Grubby.
Nice. Nice.
I was about to say, Cubby, I'd take that personally. Travis just heard your point, literally walked out of the fucking room. This man was just not.
I said ad for Freak, and Travis was out, you know?
Yep.
You just started talking about the game, and Travis is like, all right, I'll take 5 minutes.
I had to go prep for our next sponsor break, so that's also what was going on.
No,
But
and for me, it is the lane swaps. I agree with you, dude.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Rainbow Seven versus Pain, where Chitan was just putting it in Seos' ass, like 20 CS, 40 CS deficits. I was like, oh, this is what the tournament would look like if there was no lane swaps. Like if this was just like Viper facing, I don't know, God, like
Super. Just say
yeah, Supa, just anybody, right? Damn, I'll throw my own player out there. Like if it was Masu, I love Masu, but I'm just throwing. If it was like an actual like just lane to lane matchup, we're getting fucked. I think personally.
we might see that tomorrow. You know,
it's possible.
Yeah.
So I think yes, our players have gotten better, but also I think the swaps really made it easier to get your draft out there and play it into mid game pretty easily. And all the teams that went into the tournament not really understanding how to swap got so much fucking better at swapping. Mad Lions, I keep saying Mad. Gam looked so shit in swaps at the very beginning, and
Then they
now
nuked MDK.
yes, in swaps. I was like, what? So they look decent in swaps.
Mad fucked that up pretty bad, but yeah.
Yeah, same happened with Fnatic when Fnatic played up against Gam, and then they completely cooked their swap, and that game looked very, very losable to Gam. Like, so a lot of these games are looking weird.
I will say my theory on swaps is that you should still play three lanes from level 1, try and soak XP as a top laner, and then your support rotates over to support. I think the NA teams are the only teams that have been consistently doing this. I actually think there's edge there. I don't like the like 2 lanes of 2 people meta that swaps have evolved into like rotate to support and then TP to a lane if you want to farm it. I think that's dumb. I'd rather just sit in the lane and die and then TP back. Like Bwipo, unironically, in PSG, that game, Bwipo like solo won that game off the lane swap for just being in the lane from the start. Like he died, it was dumb. It did not matter. He missed 0 XP. He gets back in the lane against Gnar up like a level and change, and it was just GG from there, right? So I do think that there is still edge to be found in swaps. I want more teams to draft, like actually have champs start in the same lane and play 3 lanes from level 1. I still think that's the best way to swap.
There's some champs I think that it's very beneficial. Like if you're playing, like got that one game where it's a smolder top, it's like, yeah, actually stacking through mid and not being vulnerable on the side's good. Also, if you're playing like a melee mid, like a Yone, then you do not want to fucking ever play a 1v2 lane. Like there are some times where it feels like a necessity to actually be in mid. But I see the angle, yeah.
So it sounds as though, and this is a little heartbreaking to me, I thought, wow, the competition has gotten so great that, you know, even if a team is going to lose, at least it's a competitive game. And what you guys are saying is, nah, that's just how the game's designed now. It's supposed to make the games look closer.
Well,
or it's a byproduct.
These are also
Shut up, Freak.
To be fair, I do think these are probably the best North American teams we sent in a very long time on a macro level. On a macro level, I cannot remember having the feeling that, oh, we didn't do well in lane, or we're even in lane, and I believe that we have equal to a slightly better macro player. Like Team Liquid and Fnatic, FlyQuest. I am so sleepy still. But specifically Team Liquid was a team where I had the most faith in how they play mid games. Obviously, they have been underperforming on a individual level, and their team fighting has been shit, specifically when they went up against like Weibo and LNG. Honestly, that one was very winnable. Like it's mostly been our team fighting, not our macro that's put us behind. So like that's a feeling where I haven't felt like that since like 2016, something like that.
Okay, so here's my final assertion here, and then I'm going to throw it back to our caller. But what if there's a world where even if Korea and China are still super strong compared to NA and EU, etc. What if like in the past we had, you know, Korea and China at the top, then we had EU, then we had NA, then we had everybody else. What if, I don't want to say the gap is closed, but let's say everything is squished a bit, where like LPL and LCK maybe a little weaker this year than they have been in the past. NA came up, So did the teams beneath them, and then like EU stayed the same. So we have like a squished range of strength at Worlds this year. Is there any chance that could be true?
I think you're half right. I just don't think the ceiling has come down. I just think the floor has come up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, there's a lot of like symptomatic things, lane swap, just genuine RNG through draws being pretty damn like even across the board on performance and such. I know it's obviously kind of by design of Swiss, but the specific teams getting drawn against each other 1-to-1, there's like things you can talk about for pretty much almost every matchup we've had. So yeah, I think the floor's just gone a lot higher, and it's what we're seeing now as a much more competitive tournament.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Caller, what do you make of all this? It sounds like mostly they disagree with your take, but at least they agree that things feel more competitive.
I mean, I feel like they kind of agreed with my take. They just qualified it in a way that it made my take not seem like a take. Because I mean, I think the lane swaps and stuff is very true, but it's still the reality that we live in. So it is basically allowing the teams to play a more competitive game instead of getting choked out early on in the laning phase. I think BLG versus PSG is going to be very interesting. I mean, this is like a super hot take, but I actually think it's pretty reasonable that BLG can mental boom and lose that game. If they struggle in game one or lose game one, they're probably going to lose the series, in my opinion, just because there's almost always an Asian team that booms at Worlds, and it's looking like BLG this year. So I would say that, I mean, I'm still pretty confident in my take, especially going forwards into the tournament. I think D2 will do well. I think if D2 makes top four, then my take will be true. I think I mostly agree with what Travis is saying kind of in his last response, which is that mostly the minor regions, my main point of my take though is that the minor regions have come up, which could still overall attribute to like a comprehensive more closeness, I guess you could say, than the previous tournaments where they're
sounds
just
like Jamada
stomped.
wanted to push back on you agreeing.
Just briefly, it's more, I think the conclusion we're getting to is the same. I just think that at least when you initially described it, our kind of equation to get there is just slightly different. That's all.
And also, I think, and
that's fair.
The Western to the Korean and Chinese teams, that still feels the same. And like, yeah, Billy is booming out, but they're boomed out to LNG and T1. Like, so we still haven't really seen Chinese and Korean.
I mean, T1 is the fourth seed. T1 is the fourth seed. They shouldn't be losing to T1. They're supposed to win the tournament.
It's T1, man.
I agree, but T1, look, like, Owner is dragging this roster right now like a corpse in a body bag. Like, it's a bit absurd what we're seeing from our boy Owner.
Mm-hmm.
If they continue to, if Owner continues to play like this, and then T1 also get better, then sure, T1 are back. I'm not going to argue it. I said a few weeks ago, like, if Worlds T1 shows up, awesome, fantastic. But yeah, BLG have lost to, in hindsight, reasonable teams to lose a best of 1-2. And I think if you've watched LPL throughout a lot of this year, they drop one-off games a lot. And in their best of ones in summer as well, it was a similar-ish deal. Like, they looked shaky in a lot of those games. And in the best of threes, they would always drop game. It's the meme. They drop game one. Like, that's just kind of how it goes. So I'm not super stressed about BLG, but if they lose game one in a very, I wouldn't say convincing way, but like in a world where it's a tilting way to lose a game, like you make a stupid decision and it actively costs you the game, then I think that will 100% boom them out. But even if they were to lose game one, I would still see them winning the series 2-1 against PSG. I think they're just a very strong best of team, point blank period.
Just get on off the fucking poppy, please, and let that guy play the game. Like, he looks terrible on that pick. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Joestar, do you have anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Yeah, I guess one my quick point would be, I think the reason why I say BLG is booming out isn't because from our perspective they're booming out. I just think internally, like, they have their own expectations for how they should perform.
Sure.
I think losing to T1 is a big mental hit, and if everyone's aware of like On's performance, I think going into PSG could be a trap match. But I guess for my shout outs, I'll just say shout out PrizePicks. They've gotten me through my unemployment tenure, so thank you, Travis, for putting me onto them. And then shout out Pagoda and NZXT, and that's all.
Thanks so
and
much.
Brother's been having far more success than Forrest has right now. I can say that for a fact.
Well, we'll talk about PrizePicks in a bit, but first, it's time for the Pagoda snack break. Woo! I wish I had some that I could share with Jamada and Raz, but right now, Cubby and I will be enjoying these delicious.
Oh, you got multiple
Pagoda egg rolls. What's that, Jamada?
Okay, cool. No, I was asking what they were specifically because I'm very ignorant as a European to this product, so I'm looking at it. It does look pretty tasty.
Well, it is tasty, and they sponsor the LCS, so that's where some folks might have heard of them. But Hotline League is brought to you by Pagoda Snacks. From crispy egg rolls to crunchy cream cheese wontons and savory crab rangoons, Pagoda Snacks is ready to crush your cravings. You can shop for them in the freezer section at your local grocery store or get them delivered with Instacart. In fact, today, because I was back in the States, I was able to go pick these up at the grocery store near me, and I'm so excited because I didn't have them while I was in Berlin when we did the show last time. But this is the first time I've ever had to do an ad read while also eating.
Now I get to eat with a friend too. That's kind of nice, Travis.
We need to figure out how to like go back and forth on this, where I take a bite and you do some of the ad read, and then vice versa. But you can put the egg rolls in. It's time for the Pagoda snack break with Pagoda chicken egg rolls, which is what I'm having right now. They have a crunchy wrapper and are made with white meat chicken and are air fryer ready. And I used Kobe's air fryer to make these. It's super crispy. It's helping me crush my cravings. And again, you can shop for them in your freezer at the local grocery store. They're really good. Which version are you having, Cubby? Are you also having the meat, the chicken white meat?
Chicken white meat, yep.
Dude, the chicken's so good. I also picked up the pork ones and the cream cheese ones, so I'm going to have those as well. But thank you to Pagoda for sponsoring Hotline League. It's been really fun to have them join up for Worlds. And go check for them out. If you do end up trying out Pagoda snacks while they're sponsoring the show throughout Worlds, it'd be super cool if you dropped a message about it in the Discord or put it over on Twitter or something. We're trying to figure out ways to make sure that they know that you guys are all trying the Pagoda snacks as part of the sponsorship, and that would be super cool. And yeah, there's a link if you do !Pagoda in the in both of the chats that I just put there, but we'll also have it in the description on YouTube and on the podcast. So thank you to Pagoda for sponsoring. Before we get to the next call, I did want to mention something. If this video is delayed going up, or it is missing the timestamps, or the thumbnail is not as good as it normally is because Jordan, who her handle is Wild, you might have seen her here or there, she lives in Tampa. And for those that are unfamiliar, Tampa right now is getting slammed by a really, really, really big hurricane. So I'm actually kind of worried for her and many other people in that area. So please, have your best wishes with her. I am really worried about how crazy that space is. So thankfully she's not in one of the evacuation zones, but it's still pretty dangerous. She was messaging me earlier and sending me some of the footage, and I know that the storm is supposed to hit in the next hour or so. So, just best wishes to Jordan, and thanks for all the work that she does on the show. And I'll probably be handling a lot of that after the show tonight. So please have patience with us as we go through that. So let's get into the next call.
All right.
Yeah. I see some people say it looks like it might be hitting now. So, but yeah. Again, best wishes to everybody that's over there. I know it's kind of a spooky situation. I've been following it for the past couple days as she messaged me about all this stuff going on. So it's been kind of a crazy situation over there. Thank you to Gurnt for gifting 10 subs and also for subbing as well. Really appreciate that. Juju Beans 420. Ben Davis over on YouTube with the membership. Showtime, good to see you. Manly Muppets, and I think I shouted out Raylem, but just in case, thank you for the 5 gifted Raylem. Thank you everybody who's really helping with all the subs and everything. We have wonderful sponsors for Worlds, but it's always really expensive covering and traveling and all this stuff. I am going back for finals, so your support is always really appreciated. Cubby is back with our next caller. Our caller, Kiwiben, is here. Ben, where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm calling from Rochester, New York.
Rochester, New York, and what do you want to talk about on the show?
All right, so my take is that when C9 upset, or when NRG upset C9 last summer finals, the narrative was that it was a fluke and C9 is still better. This year, when Fly beat TL in the finals, the narrative was and still is the same. So my take is that fan narratives often skew public perceptions and lead to greater disappointments in the long run. Fly, for now, is simply a better team than TL.
Cubby, is that true?
I think the Fly have played better games pound for pound. I do think that FlyQuest has had a significantly easier draw so far. But FlyQuest, like, it actually looked okay in their games. And I really appreciate their drafts. Like, Ivern Cassio in the Viari was actually so good. And once they hit 3 items, that game was over. They did get kind of blasted by D+, but that is what it is. I still feel like Fly has been stronger. We'll see if that changes after tomorrow. But, yeah, I mean, I fully expect, like, FlyQuest to be in the 2-2 boat, and we'll just see who they draw. So, yeah. Their carries are playing better than TL, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat where I have the feeling that FlyQuest is playing better, but it's their actual draws have been quite favorable to them. The fact that they've gone up against GAM and PSG, and in some of those, in both of those games actually, or at least the DK game and the PSG game, they've kind of fallen behind. A lot of it was to the swap, if I remember correctly. There was one timer, I think this was in the DK game, where it's like, this is actually working out quite well for Fly, and Whippo just kind of runs it because he has, like, if he just chills as Leona is actually walking to cover for him, then I think the game state's really good for them.
Oh, yeah,
but he just thinks he sees an angle and, like, dies on the crash, and so he's just kind of behind for the rest of the game until, you know, DK throws it back into their favor, and then they have a lazy back topside. So there's like a few bounce like back and forths. So like I'm a little bit more confident in at least TL's early macro into the team fighting, and their actual opponents are just tougher. So it's weird. I think they're around the same level. Actually, FlyQuest is playing better late game, and I do like their comps a little bit more. So it's even for me. It's even for me. And Team Liquid, the only thing that goes against Team Liquid is literally their Pain series. That was just sad. That one was just sad. And I wanted to go against Travis a little bit because he was talking about how Impact is playing poorly. I was like, yes, in that series, that's true. Like, for me, the ones that were playing poorly more consistently was like what, APA and Umpty, a little more consistently throughout the tournament. But that series actually put in a lot of doubt for me, and is the one series that made me believe in FlyQuest a bit more. But I think they'll clean it up after that.
I mean, I hope so. Like, I mean, watching that series was just so wild because you just see TL making good decisions on map, and then they just whiff everything. Like, I mean, I don't even know like what else to talk about. Like, I don't know.
Even some of their decisions on the map was poor. Like, people are popularizing the Dom like talked about the whole soul for Baron thing. Like, overall, they're making decisions that they usually don't make.
Yeah,
and their macros micros significantly worse.
I still think it's like mostly just micro. Like, they're just falling behind. FlyQuest are guilty of the same. Like, there was the sequence in the PSG game where they just all the side of the die across the map too. Like, that was fun. I mean, but I feel like that was kind of the FlyQuest I expected from NA. Whereas the TL, like, this was a team where if they get a lead, they were going to win the game. And that has just not been the case. And it's not because they're playing against better competition. It's because their buttons either haven't connected or like one or two situations have been bad. I agree that, like, I know the whole Dom clip of them like going Baron for Soul was like blown up because he had a really funny reaction. But I will say that Ocean Soul is fake as fuck in that game. I think that they get to dictate what they want. But I didn't have as much beef or issues with that as others, because when you're playing against Ori Nocturne or with, like, it's just if the alts connect, you die, and if not, then that's it. I don't think Ocean Soul has a big impact on that. But
I just think the decision making on both sides for both these teams, like, I don't I don't look at Fly and think that they're the superior team. I look at Fly and TL and think they both are kind of letting me down. You know, like, what was it?
You think Fly's letting you down, really? I feel like Fly's played expectation or more.
Dude, I think it was the DK game where... Was it the DK game? Yeah, it was the DK game, I think, where they...
Showmaker had the Thanos Silas game. You know, if you're playing Silas with Leona, Malachi, Ashe, like...
But they just get caught... I think the DK game was the one where they were, like, super behind for a while, and then they eventually got caught up to, like, be gold even. And then I think it was, like, Masu who was recalling in the bush... Was it? Am I thinking of this correctly? I think Masu was recalling in the bush on top lane, gets just randomly murked, and then like after that, the team just starts inting one at a time for the next like 5 minutes, and I was like, oh my gosh, they evened the gold lead, like they're starting to come back, like this is what I had hoped out of NA getting better this year, and then it's like the gold lead gets even, they've crawled it back, and then they just immediately start dying, one just ran in random ways. And like, I think I would feel less bad if I felt like we were getting like out team fought or whatever. But in both these in a lot of these Team Liquid and Fly games, I watch and they will just make random ass decisions where I'm like, why? Like this, you're just losing for the goofiest reasons. So I don't know. It's actually strange. It's the first time I felt this way. It is strange because I think most worlds we go and I'm like, oh man, we just suck compared to these guys. But in these games, and perhaps it is what Jamada was talking about with like how lane swapping and everything makes the game feel closer until it isn't. There's just a lot of times where I'm like, wait, we don't suck that much, except for when we just make random ass decisions where like people get picked off or whatever. Like the Bwippo stuff where we're just always waiting to see if Bwippo is gonna, it feels like he coin flips so many engages and all that stuff. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I think as well, to kind of touch on that, because there was a lot of narratives around LEC teams this year, especially when we got to summer. And as a non-North American, I haven't really watched many Fly or TL Worlds games. I'll put my hands up and say Court. But to touch on the narrative thing, narratives are always what kind of just runs general perception point blank period, right? No matter what, if a team I was probably the biggest KC hater throughout all of this year. I will use KC as my number one example of their improvement throughout summer. If you were an LEC watcher, towards the end of their summer split, they looked like they were legitimately improving, playing very, very solid and passable League of Legends. And there was one game specifically, I think it was G2 at the end of their summer split. They played G2. I don't think they won, but it was kind of a nothing game because they were already qualified in top 8.
And they were a top 4 team by the end of the split.
So if I remember right, they were a top 4 team at the end of the split in summer.
Yeah,
good. My entire perception of KC shifted from just watching that G2 game. And I went from going, they'll probably like, I tweeted it, I said something like 5th through 6th is like the most realistic place for KC. And then I saw that G2 game and I said, they could run it to top 3. Like there's a reasonable world where if BDS looks like shit, if SK were already kind of crumbling, all of these different, like if all of these dominoes fall right, KC could do it, and it wouldn't even be unreasonable, and everyone thought I was a nutcase, except for the KC fans, because they're nutcases anyway. And they almost did it. So I think fan narrative is something that's always gonna like control, and to a point even broadcast narrative, if us as talent, we don't do a good job of necessarily highlighting some of these things that we see on a consistent level enough to like change the fan sentiment if they've already got an idea in their head, then you end up with these kind of situations. I think you have to correct, like your sentiment of your take is correct. I don't know if you've necessarily applied it to the correct situation, in my opinion, between Fly and TL. But again, I'm not a North American. I'm far less equipped to answer
I will say
against this situation.
I think a lot of people were fading FlyQuest because they replaced Jensen with Quad, and like is me, someone that covered Quad and watched Challengers, I was like, oh, this is an upgrade. Whereas most fans just saw Jensen leaving and being like, oh, like what the hell are FlyQuest doing? Like there's so many egos on this team. They messed up, right? So I always actually had them like rated pretty close. I put FlyQuest above TL on my tier list going into summer. I was one of the very few people to do that. and FlyQuest, they didn't play better for this split, but they did end up winning. Like, they were able to compete with TL. So I've always viewed them as that they are a team that can compete with anyone in the league. I don't think that the narrative has gotten out of control on them. I just think that fans felt strongly about FlyQuest in both positive and negative manners, and a lot of it was like related to their performance.
So I will say
to
that fan sentiment comes from somewhere. Most of the time, it's either like the extreme feelings from fandom. That's the one we have to track for sure. But otherwise, it's either coming, like a lot of the time that I'm reading a thread or reading Twitter, and it mostly is coming from either what the co-streamers' critiques are or the casters' critiques are. You can almost track it 1-to-1 a lot of the times. So like even the example of like Energy over Cloud9, that was an upset. Like that was clearly an upset where like fucking Fudge at the time was getting solo killed by Dokla, who had been playing poorly. I felt like during that regular season. But actually stepped it the fuck up during playoffs. The same, I mean, I specifically am talking about Dokla, but obviously that happened in Jungle. Like contracts looked like the second coming. Like all of these players really stepped up and played much better, and Cloud9 did not. And I think that's just one example. And then we talked about the FlyQuest versus Team Liquid stuff. So like, I think it's important to track fan sentiment when it is unfair based off of like, you know, sometimes people are just haters for teams. You mentioned K-Corp. That one is a great example of whether you're going to get like fan sentiment that's extremely positive from the French side or extremely negative because you know,
MDK.
MDK is an easy one too.
MDK as well. Yeah. I mean, actually, MDK at this Worlds is another good example. I think people are actually a little bit too harsh on the MDK roster, all things considered. Like, realistically, it's a team of 4, you know, rookies. It's their first year in a major region. They made it to Worlds. No one thought they were going to get out of play-ins. They got out of play-ins. They won a game in Swiss. Was the loss to Gamma a bit embarrassing?
Do we have a MDK take? I just want to make sure that we're not getting into that, Cubby.
Yeah, we will have an MDK take, actually.
Oh, okay. So yeah. Like again, I think like the narrative, but this is what I'm saying though with Mad, like that's entirely a narrative thing. Don't get me wrong. I agree with that. I agreed with that narrative, but I think people applied it too harshly.
Yeah.
In a sense, but I feel like the expectation for them, like, I mean, if they didn't get out of plans, I would not have been surprised, right? That was kind of my expectations for Mad. And they somehow found a way to beat and still, like, you know, depress my expectations in the end.
But that's what I'm saying. It feels like they surpassed expectations, but they still let everyone down. Like, how did these two things coexist at the same time?
I mean, that is fandom.
Kind of saying,
like, I know
it is, but I guess, but it feels unfair on them because it's like, what's actually the win solution?
I agree.
Win Worlds,
because
you know,
people
like, where's the line?
I agree.
People came in wanting to see them fail. Like the whole Mad Lions at an international thing. They wanted to see them fail because it was like, well, Mad always fails at an international, so there was that expectation. North American fans just wanted a dub, and a dub meant like just seeing European team go out. We saw our team go out first, so it just felt like all the North American fans wanted to see that shit. So like there was a good subsection of the community, as I'm blurred the fuck out. Hopefully my camera, you know, dials in.
Hopefully it stays that way.
Lock in.
Look. Meanwhile, what's even your background, buddy? I don't even know what the fuck is happening over there. You're like at the NLC studio or what?
Yeah. Well, this backdrop is from the NLC days. Yeah, I've still got it. Still holding strong.
Okay.
It's good. It hides my very not messy room. Smile.
Made bad.
Darkness behind me hides that. But yes. So like that was the case for sure for Mad Lions. So yes, tracking fan sentiment in terms of like severity is important. Like because already people had expectations for them losing. So, Alvaro and even Supa, but mostly Alvaro, I think was the person I was most impressed with. I was really excited, like happy to see how he performed.
Yeah.
Oh, where the heck did you go?
My camera on Skype looks fine.
Yeah.
That's true, actually. What? That's wild.
My camera on Skype looks fine.
Time, hey. Keep talking shit, huh?
Hey. Raz is DDoSing my connection. What's going on, bro?
All right. Anywho, let's get back to the point, which is, I really actually I'm just kind of curious. Out of if I took a poll of the three of you, how many of you would say that FlyQuest is better than TL based off Worlds games?
Can I say even?
I would say even.
No, you can't say even. You can't say even. That's the new rule.
I'll take FlyQuest then. Just by a hair.
If I'm allowed to hop in, I would say FlyQuest has looked better simply because Masu's mechanics have looked insane.
No, I know that's what you would say, but your whole take is that that's the thing. That's
well, you're comparing it to Yan.
I want to know what Raz and Jamada think.
You're comparing it to Yan. I would say TL slightly. TL slightly.
Yeah, I lean on the TL side, and also you just have to look at who they've played to get to the score, like respective score lines they're at.
I mean, if TL could use their flash key better, they legitimately could have like beat LNG and Weibo each.
And, yes, both of them.
I know, yeah. So like there is that. Like they play maps so well, but then I'm so disappointed in like some of the micro that they have in fights that like it's I don't know what's going on. Like
I want the Spawn clip on Twitter where he's just screaming at them about not using flash. I think that would be great.
I hope someone has a take on that. I want to talk about that.
You guys need to lock in and play 700 more games in the next 3 days.
That was the worst Australian accent I've ever heard.
All right. I was half-assing it, okay? I was half-assing it.
How dare Spawn not cradle his players' balls after they barely beat the worst team?
all right.
Yeah.
Caller them a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Caller, what do you want to shout out here at the end, Ben?
Shout out to my friends who are watching on Discord, and shout out you guys, Travis and Cubby, for running the show.
When you say they're watching on Discord, do you mean that they're watching like somebody's restreaming this on a Discord?
I have friends on Discord who I plugged this stream on.
But they all have the stream open individually, right? That's very important.
Yes, they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, so you were shouting out your friends who are all watching this.
Yeah. So Dark Rook and Scarlet Holmes, you guys are awesome. And shout out you guys for having me on. I've been a long time watcher, and this is my first time on the show, so thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much. Have a good one.
All right, thank you. Take care.
Dark Rook is a very smart name. Dark Rook, in comparison to the Dark Knight.
I think we have time for another caller before our next break. So let's
the Dramata, which is just dark.
Nice, man.
I was holding it in all.
For the last hour, man, you couldn't just keep it together.
I couldn't. I actually couldn't.
That's terrible.
That was too good. That was actually too good.
Let's hope this take erases that from at least my mind, because Raz, uncool.
Ebraum is here. Ebraum, where are you calling from?
How's it going, everyone? Calling from the great state of Florida.
Okay. Well, hopefully you're in a safe spot of Florida.
Yeah. I'm a few hours away, but I did live there for quite some time. So
yeah,
Tampa Bay is having gotten a direct hit in quite some time.
Yeah. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Well, they kind of spoiled it a few minutes ago. What the heck, guys? But my thing was about MDK. I really don't understand why people are hating on them so much. I really don't get it. These guys are coming in with 4 rookies, and they went to Worlds. They got out of play-ins, a thing that MDK usually doesn't do. And they didn't do very well in Swiss stage, but they did enough. And I feel like that's something they can build on in the future. And if people are mad that BDS isn't here or whatever, then hey, fix the format.
All right. The fix the format thing is actually true, though.
Extremely based. May I tackle this one first?
Yeah.
Get in there.
Because I said it a few minutes ago, and the whole Raz, what are you doing?
All right. Probably gonna get his Pagoda egg rolls.
He doesn't want to listen to me. Completely agree. It's everything you've just said word for word. I think it's just the sentiment of Mad the last few years, and also the sneaky tendency of how they've actually qualified to a lot of these internationals over these last few years, right? 2022 EU ended up getting an extra seed, right? As an example, and that allowed for Mad Lions to be there. If I recall, I'm pretty sure it was 2022 anyway. MSI late run 2020, but obviously they lost to NA in play-ins, and that was a really bad showing. And then last year was also last year. I think it's more about the longevity of them qualifying to internationals, and then disappointing, and people haven't let go of this narrative yet. When realistically, it's a completely different project. It's technically a different organization, if you want to be specific, but they just have the Mad Lions branding. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty harsh. I think especially after they got out of play-ins, everyone should have been like, yeah, this is awesome. This team of rookies who's never played in the major region made it to main stage. And if they bomb out and go 0-3, we should still be happy that they even made it out of play-ins, especially considering the level of play-ins.
I mean, they're your version of 100 Thieves, right? For the LCS fans here.
Yeah, I mean,
I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
More or less, yeah. They're kind of the direct comparison. If you, I think it's a slightly more. It's for the Europeans, like having 4 players same split come out of ERLs is something you don't often see, like a roster fully composed like that.
Yeah.
So it's even more extreme, I think, arguably, than the 100 Thieves roster, but I don't know the ins and outs of how it was composed, so forgive the ignorance.
I think that fan sentiment didn't help them a ton because like it kind of started with Niski getting kicked, right? Who was a fan favorite, and then they were just going to bring in their Spanish players, right? Well, what did Niski tweet?
It was that whole. It was that whole. I mean, or something. It was that whole thing from last year, and there was a lot of like there was a lot of French versus Spanish tension in the community around the organization in general, just because of MSI. And the whole, keep smiling allegations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which again, I'm not even going to get into that because that could be a topic to talk about on its own. But yeah, I think that because Niski is such a he's liked in the French community, but he's also liked in the broader LEC community, right?
Yeah. Also, like Mac too. Like they changed the coaching staff.
MacPad, the coaching staff, all gone. Like again, it's a completely different organization compared to previous years, not just in personnel, but like again, technically the actual people running everything. But that same sentiment from the fans remained from their previous years. So yeah, I think they've just been done dirty, to be honest with you. Do they deserve some of their hate? Arguably, yes. Do they deserve as much as they've gotten? No, like far from. And yeah, people really need to take a bit of a chill pill.
Yeah. Heavy focus on. So like in terms of like my hate coming in, but then it didn't really exist anymore by the season finals. Yeah, the actual format was so infuriating because like based off of summer. I know that Dom was talking about the whole season long. Like I don't care what happens in winter, I don't care what happens in spring. I care what happens in summer. And like summer that should theoretically qualify you to the international that is Worlds. And the fact that they bombed out to, if I remember correctly, like KC or BDS, let me double check. Like they did not look good in their playoffs run. They did not look. They barely went into playoffs through their regular season, and then actually immediately bombed out during the playoffs.
Yeah, just for clarity on that point, they were 1-7 on the final day. Then had to play tiebreakers to qualify into playoffs, to which they then lost to BDS.
Yeah,
and then got 2-0'd by KC.
Yeah.
So, again, them then going on to qualify to season finals anyway because of the good performances from spring and winter. To again, the sneaky ways that they qualify to internationals, I think, is what like angers/aggravates a lot of the fans. This time, definitely a lot more format, obviously.
Yeah. And so like by the end, I wasn't mad because they ended up beating G2 and making it very competitive versus Fnatic, so they looked like the third best team anyways. So I was like, even though I fucking despised the season finals format, it was like, okay, they actually put it together at the very tail end of it and looked like the third best team. So I was like, okay, that's completely fine, whatever. And yes, the whole community's usual, like the European community's usual disdain for Mad Lions in an international event was one thing. So like I think, and also another thing too is, even though I'm not privy to it a lot throughout the season, I became privy to it a lot when I was doing the research, that like their player, specifically Supa, talks big, man. That guy will just like in interviews be extremely confident in who he thinks he can beat. So whenever people, I guess
he's the best AD in Europe.
Yep.
What's the problem?
Yep.
I don't see a problem.
So when people hear that shit, and they're like, "Oh hell no," then it piles on. So
yeah.
And was it actually like really sneaky when like they beat G2 at the end in season finals, and when they got one game for beating Fnatic?
Yes.
You know?
Yes. I still think so. Like
Okay.
I think that Mad Lions in winter bought into their players from on a philosophical level. They understood who they were. They drafted in a way that actually made them feel comfortable, and then they tried to play the game normally for 4 months after winter, and that's why they looked shit. And then we got to the back end of or we got to season finals really, and then into G2. All of a sudden, we're back to putting Merwin on carries and these weird top lane picks that you almost can't prep for in some cases, right? And then they beat an off-day G2, which like it's a huge accomplishment, and I don't want to downplay it.
Mm-hmm.
But then at that point, qualifying to top 3, that's it. Because of everything else that's happened in the past and the way that BDS sat. The onus was then on BDS to make. It might have been top 2.
They didn't beat Fnatic.
Telling me they didn't beat Fnatic. I know, but I'm saying because of that, got to the round 3,
they would have gotten in.
Guaranteed. Yeah, they were guaranteed top 3. Guaranteed top 4, which then meant that BDS had to not only then beat G2 because they got knocked down into the lower bracket.
Oh, that's
but then
right.
They would have to beat MDK. So that's why I say like it's sneaky, because Mad Lions arguably knocked out a team stronger than them into the lower bracket, which then forces that team to have to go through, run a train on the lower bracket teams before they get back to them again.
Yeah.
So
honestly,
that's why I see it the way I do.
Honestly, fix the fucking format though, because like K Corp should have been in that tournament anyway, and they actually could have made top 3, which would have been interesting. But
I mean,
they were good. They were good at the end of the split.
Yeah, but like they 10th, man. Like,
yeah, they were. Yeah.
I like, you know what I mean? Like, if it would be one thing if they were like 8th, 6th, and then they didn't make it into season, but like 10th, I think the bar being that high is very reasonable. And you also have to remember the reason why the format is the way it is to stop like these kind of summer split mercenary teams coming in.
That's fine.
And trying to run the disc.
I want to have the best teams though.
That's okay.
Summer should be double weighted for sure.
Look,
agreed.
I am more than fine. Look, thank God there's now a 3rd international event that makes winter split useful. But like summer's like Worlds is supposed to be for which teams are the strongest in summer. I don't give a fuck how good you were in spring and winter. I really don't care.
I get it. I do get it. And also the other thing, I feel like I am dying on a hill that you guys will just not understand. I still remember, like, you guys in A, we swapped out the spring, like half a spring split for, what was it, the lock-in tournament or whatever it was?
Yeah.
Because we kind of we was like spring, like the only thing on everyone's minds in North America was Worlds, right? And I get it because it's fucking Worlds. But the tournament is the way it is. Like you're saying now, Raz, now that there's the 3rd tournament in winter, I think it does fix or make some of those issues feel a lot better.
Wait, what does that have to do with us having lock-in?
You guys hate the idea of like the early part of your year mattering.
No. I think we like lock-in. The problem was that our region has so many fucking players that are imported on an annual basis because we can't retain players, that we would run the lock-in event with like teams that were half formed. And so I think that's part of the reason why they got rid of it. Also, I think they probably wanted to save some money on production, so it was easy for them to cut that thing. But like, I think the LCS fans generally liked lock-in.
Yeah, I would have liked locking if the rosters got to play.
Okay.
It was fun having some of the Acad players play, I will say. So.
It's different from people not liking early season, from people only feeling that Worlds is the only thing that mattered. That's the feeling that we needed to fucking push away from. But people like, I like lock-in. Hell, I would have loved lock-in if we kept it, but then just made it so tier 2 teams are added, like a Demacia Cup. I would have enjoyed that shit, but we didn't get that far.
That would have been good. Yeah. The only thing that I'll add to the topic, like the other topic with MDK, I think that this is a good example of the pendulum that I like to say shifting between you have to hate NA or EU, like just one or the other. Like I mean, the 100 Thieves versus Mad Lions comparison, it's pretty sound, right? What is it? 3 rookies with Meech, now Tomo, and a new coach. I do think that 100 Thieves has a little bit more goodwill in the community, but each org has won in the past. Thinking about LEC, each org had a sub 50% win rate in summer, like spring too for MDK. Each made runs in playoffs. There's a lot more hope for 100 Thieves, somewhat based on their draw, but also I feel like the narrative around them was a lot more uplifting than it was from MDK, and that ended up kind of coming to fruition. So I don't know. I think like it's a good thing to keep in mind. We've had a couple calls in terms of narratives and like how things appear, and we can always. It's easy to hindsight Harriet and just be like, this is how it was. But I think it is important as a fan to not get too over the rails and to just stick with at least watching the games, like doing the research if you want, and then forming your own opinion, right? Yeah.
Thanks, Ebraum, for the call. Anything you want to add here before I give you your shout
out? No, that was a pretty good discussion, honestly. Jamada, Raz, thank you guys for being on here.
Yeah. Anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Yeah, shout out to PrizePicks again. It's been really fun. Just doing like small bets on these games kind of just wakes you up and makes you watch games that you didn't really think you would be watching. So that's pretty cool. Pagoda, I've been actually a Pagoda fan for quite a while, so yeah, shout out to them as well. And yeah, stay safe, everyone. Especially people in Florida. This hurricane seems pretty bad.
Yeah, Jordan just messaged me because I did a check-in with her, and she said our fence just broke. Hopefully, none of it goes flying through the windows. And also, I guess there's footage of the baseball stadium in Tampa losing its roof.
The Tropicana Field. I used to work there too. The entire roof is like shredded right now.
Oh, it lost the roof?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah. So, well, either way, thank you so much for the call. Agree with the stay safe and appreciate the shout out. So thanks so much, and we'll catch you next time.
Have a good one, guys.
Yeah. All right. Talking about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is super cool. Immediately after this show, for those of you that missed the shout out at the beginning or the announcement at the beginning, we're going to be doing a Worlds preview show. It'll be Cubby and myself and a couple of friends, and we're going to be doing a 30-minute sort of predictions show that's sponsored by PrizePicks. We'll have a couple of lineups that folks will be submitting or suggesting for folks that want to participate in the PrizePicks stuff. But PrizePicks is just a really fun way to engage with League Esports. So, for instance, we just heard somebody mention that it's something that helps them feel motivated to watch some of the games early in the morning. You can sign up using the link, which is in the description of the video on YouTube or the podcast, as well as in the chat right now. And when you do, use code Travis so that you can get the benefits of being able to get a $50 promo credit after your first pick. The win or lose, you'll be able to get that, which is pretty cool. You just need to make a lineup of $5 or more and submit it, and then you'll be able to earn that $50 promo credit that they're giving out to folks who sign up through my link. So super appreciate PrizePicks coming through. It's been really, really fun to see everybody in the Discord sharing their different lineups and their wins and losses. And I think for Worlds in particular, it's just a really fun time because there's so many different matches, so many different questions on what players are going to perform, which players aren't. And with the sheer amount of players that we have participating in Worlds, it's just a really great time to be able to play almost every day of the week. So thank you so much to PrizePicks for sponsoring the show. Again, stay tuned for the show afterwards. The prediction show will also have that going up over on YouTube. And if people like it, then I'll keep posting them. So thanks so much to PrizePicks for sponsoring the show. All right. Headed off to grab the next call is Cubby. Thank you to Gurnt for the 10 gifted. Cruellas at 52. We got Mojica at 21. Hey, it's Fleeb for the 6. Mouth for the 9 months. Moyle 7. I am Elvis 71 months. My gosh. PB Doc gifted 5 subs, and Swede gifted a sub to Delfino, and she is my biggest fan, so I'm sure she appreciates that. And then Bob and George, thank you for gifting a sub membership over on YouTube. Really appreciate everybody who's supporting the show. If you are on Twitch, you can always hover your cursor over the screen and a little purple crown will pop up. You can click that free sub button if you see it. But we got our next caller here, and that caller is Godzola. Godzola, where are you calling from?
Hello, I'm calling from Denver, Colorado.
Denver, Colorado. What do you want to talk about in the show?
I want to talk about how great this meta has been and how great it will be. We've had a lot of really interesting picks. I can't prove it. I got no receipts, but I had a feeling that Twitch was going to come out at some point. We saw a Twitch game. Who would have expected that? Yeah, it seems like a lot of teams are holding on to picks. I remember there was a post interview, one of the season finals. I forget which team it was, but they said that they had a Kog'Maw and they just didn't need to play it. And so, like, I'm waiting with anticipation to see what the meta is going to be for top 8.
Yeah, I think Nuke Duck was quoted as saying, like, oh, we're not scrimming against LCK and LPL teams because we've got some secret tech we want to deploy against them or something. So it does seem like there's a pretty wide variety. And I think I do wonder if some of this is because of the way that boot camping was done, right? Where we had the Eastern teams boot camp together. Well, I guess they didn't need to boot camp. They were in, but they played against each other. And then because North America came over and was boot camping in Europe, you had this like other meta form, you know, kind of like a West or East meta form, or people try different stuff. I don't know if that's true or not, but it certainly feels like that could have been contributed to it.
I mean, like Rumble was really highly prioritized by the Eastern teams, and it wasn't prioritized at all by the Western teams. Same with Malachi. Yeah. It's kind of changed as the tournament's gone on, but there were definitely a few picks that you could notice that were affected by the scrim bubbles. And Raz, you talked about lane swaps like impacting it earlier too. I think that's definitely opened up the books.
Yeah. Yeah, well. Exactly. Because like I did a segment where because I was just looking at play-ins specifically, because play-ins had the least amount of games in any other year because it was just it was a series-based thing than it was, where it was like a best of ones based thing in the past. But compared to last year, we just had simply more unique picks, and then of course holistically we had more unique picks per games. But that's once again that's cherry picking a bit. And a lot of it is just based off lane swap, because you are playing things that would get smashed in lanes, just purely. And even past that, what you had said, where it was like different scrim bubbles, is also accurate. Like, I remember talking to some players, and they were pretty convinced that Rumble was gone. Like, that the nerf was way too heavy. And then we're seeing from the Korean teams specifically, where it's like still seeing 80 carry mid, so you're still seeing Smolder, with some other picks, like we saw Lucian, but that was mostly as a response to Smolder. Tristana, Rumble topside. And then for other teams, we're seeing like the Yone pick that obviously has dominated so far pretty heavily.
The Syndra disappeared, but that was
exactly. Syndra disappeared, but it's still a pick. Like control mages, to your point. So you're seeing both 80 mids, 80 assassins, control mages. Bot lanes, you're still seeing pretty heavily, like if it's a mage, it's a Ziggs. Sadly, I wish we saw more diversity there, but for now it's just Ziggs.
I'm waiting for Syndreflex. I still think it's going to happen. Yeah.
No 80 carry player can actually play that shit, but also it's pretty weak in lane. And probably doesn't do too well in a swap. But like, but there's a whole variety of like things that I think is great. And also like some teams like Gam, I love, because they just decided like saying, okay, fuck it, we're going to pick Smolder top lane. We're going to pick Aurora, Shyvana comps. Like those type of comps I enjoy the most.
The Wukong's been big.
Exactly. There has actually just been a lot of diversity, because there's a lot you can do in a swap. And some teams clearly have a larger mindset of what they can do when they get into a game. Like G2's first game literally was Yasuo Yone, which was fun.
So, but just as a quick aside, folks, I was just messaging Cubby, and I think we have some extra time to take an additional caller. So if anybody wants to put in takes, we can definitely do that. I know that Jamato said that he wanted to talk about the spawn stuff, and I don't think we have a take on that. So if anybody has strong feelings on the spawn,
that could be entertaining.
That would be really cool. Anyway, continuing on with all this stuff. Yeah, I mean, Jamato, have you enjoyed the world's meta?
Yeah, I mean, I think the meta's been good. It's been diverse. I think it would be even cooler if collectively we just decided to ban Yone if we were on red side.
True.
Because then the mid pool actually starts to get interesting. I was speaking with Vedius about this earlier today, because it's like once Yone's gone, what does the mid pool actually look like? Do you know what I mean? Especially when it comes to also like answering sides, because it feels like teams are really struggling to answer sides if they don't have Yone or one of the like 2 or 3 explicitly good mages at answering side lanes like Ahri.
Yeah.
And I suppose Galio, but we haven't seen Galio mid, we've seen Galio top, right? So even that's kind of like a cheat. Actually, no, we saw Galio mid our scout, so I guess, yeah. But
the Thanos game?
the Thanos Galio angle.
Holy shit.
So that's where I think the meta could even take a bigger right turn, or a bigger left turn rather. Otherwise, yeah, I think it's super diverse. I think a lot of teams have their own specific identities, and specifically that West versus East scrim bubble at the start of Swiss, very, very explicit, like Cubby was saying. And I think as the tournament goes on, especially once we do hit top 8, yeah, I think there's a lot of room for more ADs to actually, or not ADs, well, the ADs are gone from mid, thankfully. But see more picks actually show their face. I was very curious about Brand as a champion, but actually in lane, because when Champions Q first kicked up, it was the only thing so many of these AD players and mid lane players were trying was Brand mid.
Brand Nami, baby.
Brand Nami was like it's the old school Chinese booster combo, actually fun.
Yeah.
But it just kind of picked up as you laugh, but it's true. You could go find it. But yeah, I think we're in an awesome spot. I think this is one of the nicer metas we've watched over the years. And I personally don't think teams have actually clocked onto what I believe the best way to play the game is right now. And I think that's just straight up as long as you can survive a lane swap scenario, just drafting for Arkies, like big team fight Arkies, I think is the easiest way to play the game. In the sense of like execution is normally pretty fine. I don't think there's a high ceiling to a lot of these meta like pull the trigger champs. I'm talking like Jarvan, Wukong. They're like there, and I want to see more of that across the map, right? More stuff that's facilitating combos across the map.
I've been a bit surprised about the lack of Jarvan. I think part of it has to do with the AD pool, but like if bans go towards that way, like if you're not playing against Kalista Kai'Sa and it goes back to like the Jhin Ash games, then we might see some more Jarvan emerge. This has been a great patch. I know we talked about the introduction of Grubs earlier. I do think that Grubs has helped along with lane swaps. Lane swaps are too common, but I do think that lane swaps should be viable in like 5, 10, 15% of games to open up some more strats. And I do think that the patch in the meta that we've all experienced, part of it is because lane swaps do exist.
Yeah.
That is a pro.
It sucks. Well, it doesn't suck that we don't have mid-tournament changes, God forbid. But it sucks that we've landed on a patch where lane swaps have come back into flavor.
They're just too big,
Yeah, I do wonder, not to diverge too far from the point, what Riot are going to do with lane swaps, because we're not going to see pro play until like 14, 24, 23, right? Like the preseason tournaments. And even then, they might not make adjustments around those, because there were supposed to be big adjustments to stop them in the first place. But yeah, they're still here.
I just think the idea, I mean, this is not a thing. Everyone already knows it. Everyone kind of knew it before the patch hit, which is like hitting turret plates does nothing. It actually does nothing. The game's entire idea is to make it so the enemy top laner is starved from resources. Like, so a Jax or a fucking Cassante can get through much easier than a Camille or something. Or
this is funny. Raz, I heard that some of the teams who were playing in play-ins were not practicing lane swaps until a couple days before they started like actually playing the play-in games.
That's
like they just thought that they wouldn't exist. And I was like, what?
That is actually crazy.
Like, I believe it.
Yeah.
You know,
there was a team that was referenced that's approved a lot of lane swaps, and they were definitely on the list of teams that didn't think lane swaps were a thing, from what I heard. Oh man.
Yeah, we need to have a conversation with those stabs. We need to have
it's pretty funny that I caught wind of that. But yeah,
the solution for sure is, and I was thinking about it because I think every solution is pretty fucking hand-fisted and is too tough, other than making ramping turret shots a lot stronger. So like diving early on is just harder. But even still, some of these dives are really impossible to deal with. Like if it's a 1v3, 1v4, you're like, okay. If it's a 2v4, then you're still gonna die. But like if they make it where turret shots are strong enough to be able to defend a 2v4, then that's 2 game warping. So actually, I still don't know.
I think you could maybe. It's frustrating, but you could, for some people, but you could probably allow the tower ramp to stay on for longer against champions than it currently does, because it does drop, like, weirdly it's in this weird middle ground where it drops off like fast enough normally, but there's also still times where you'll get hit by a tower shot if you were just diving, and you're like, how is this thing still ramped? Because you took aggro after the fact again.
Right.
I think they could do that and just probably be done with like repeat dives. But I think if you're in a situation where it's 1v4, like you were saying, Raz, You should die. That's just how that is.
2v4, you should also die, unless if it's a crazy combo. But you should
I like
die.
the idea of delaying the drop off on the ramp, though. I actually think that's decent. It would help a lot of scenarios, actually. Because, like, even, like, let's say it takes, like, 3 tower shots on minions before the ramp drops off. Like, at least you're picking up like a lot more golden XP from that before they're able to re-execute the dive, right? Like, you have more time to, like, get CDs back and stuff like that. That could actually be a pretty good system.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like people are in agreement that the meta is pretty cool, and we're hoping for some more changes, I guess, to the meta over the course of Worlds. But it's been interesting. It feels like there was a lot of the changes that were made in the patch for the Worlds patch was something that teams were more hopeful we would see changes for, and maybe that just didn't end up moving the way folks expected. So, regardless, thank you so much to Godzola. Godzola, anything you would add to this before I give you your shout out time?
I had to take on lane swaps. I just want to see the best teams play. Lane swaps is a team check. I'm fine with lane swaps, but that's a whole nother conversation. Yes. Quick question for the panel. I like a Twitch. Do y'all have a like way out of left field like hot take for a champ that might get picked going forward in the tournament? I think Zoe might get up. Like I could see an angle for a Zoe, maybe something like way out there like that.
I had to check what's been played in main stage yet, but I'll have some in a sec.
I think Yone is likely to see play.
True.
You just said, do I have a guess? And that's a guess. I would say Yone.
You know what's funny? I see so many people bitching at TL and APA for not playing Yone. Like, 1, we ever expected them to play that champ, and 2, they are just ahead of the meta. Like, they have it right. No, they just aren't playing like fucking Yone. They're just banning that shit. Like everyone should. Yeah.
Raz, you have any fun predictions?
We're probably gonna see a Taric, like weak enough support, like melee supports anyways, like a Rel, where I think Taric actually does really well. If we get,
you mean Taric?
What the hell? You have sat through the entire call with this man Jamada unable to pronounce R's, where he said Aki instead of Arki, and you.
It did take me a while to figure out he was saying Arki. I was like, is this some new meta term that I don't understand? And then as he kept talking about the champions, I was like, oh, he meant ultimates. I was like, what is an Aki?
Like, that's crazy.
Akinoki was Jan's first IGN.
Yeah.
It was obviously it.
My bad. I'll make sure to really put the R emphasis on.
Yeah, I want to hear the hard R after.
Okay. Let's.
I think just quickly on the he can't help it when I'm around. The Amumu. I don't think Inspired didn't play it yet at Worlds. I know he played it domestically.
He has.
No, he did.
Did he play? Did he play Worlds? Oh, okay. Then I guess it doesn't count. I'll give a shout out to my boy Kane. I think that champ's really good into melee comps if you draft around it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a lot to make that champion useful. And I'm specifically talking about Red Kane because on this patch, all of the Bruiser items are really strong. And he can low-key just be a 2-IM Andy, like a lot of the other skirmishing junglers. And very easily fulfill his role. He does a really good job at doing that. And he has an okay matchup into a lot of junglers, actually, that are meta right now.
Yeah, I would love to see Canyon Kane again, please. That's how.
No, that guy stinks. I'll die. No, I'll die on this hill. He made one good. He didn't get formed for 23 minutes, and he made one good play like 35 minutes into the game, and this is somehow solidified in everyone's head that Canyon is one of the like greatest Kane players to ever like grace the earth.
You are a hater.
No, it's not a hater. Go back and watch the game. Go back and watch the game.
The game they won.
Look, great. He pressed his F key and pressed W on the AD carry when they weren't paying attention. Incredible. Did he play a good Kane game? Absolutely not. He fulfilled his role for 1 minute and it won the game. Otherwise, yeah, Kane would be great.
All right. Okay.
I'm gonna throw out Rise. I'm actually really bummed we
Yeah.
haven't seen Rise. Like Raz was talking about ways to answer on sides. I think that if Blind Ari continues, then we might see someone try and answer with Rise. I think it's quite good. Rise items are not bad right now. So
I could see that being a
yes.
T1
Yeah.
top 8
Yes.
special.
yeah, I mean, like if it's like J4 meta, and like you get to J4 Rise into a mid laner, like that could be pretty good, you know.
Godzola, what do you want to shout out?
Well, long time take giver, first time caller. Thanks for pulling me in. Really do appreciate it. Shout outs to Twitch, the platform, for keep supporting TGI with subs and stuff, guys. Shout out to YouTube Premium for the best way for watching Worlds, especially during my job. Shout out to Amazon Delivery, the Rube Goldberg machine of human suffering. Just press a button and just so much suffering happens. Shout out to Kobe's air fryer. Shout out to Boostio for being right about NA practice. Shout out to Drew and Wild and Numi for keeping things going. And shout out to MagicCon Vegas. I got a hotel and I got a plane, and I didn't think passes were going to sell out. So if anyone can help me out with that, I'm just going to throw that one out there to the ether. That'd be cool. Thanks.
Oh, that's painful.
Very painful.
Well, you're Godzola on the Discord, right? If people want to try to scam you.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I've worked cons. I can work a booth. I can volunteer. Just put me in, coach.
Oh, interesting. You've worked cons. Okay. Well, yeah, you should say something about it in the Magic the Gathering chat so that I can like tag somebody who I know is.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Cool. All right. Thanks so much for the call. We'll catch you next time.
As he said that, I went onto Amazon just to see. I don't even know why. And the first thing it recommends me is fucking suitcase luggages. After I've lost my suitcase because the fucking European airports can't be transferring that to me. That's actually crazy.
Wait, you still haven't gotten your suitcase yet?
They're listening.
No, I still haven't gotten it. It's actually crazy too because they're having communicated to them like it's not lost, but if you could tell us what it looks like and also like just like send us a picture, that would be great.
Have they given an update?
The update is that they're still looking for it.
But it's not lost.
Update. Yeah, but it's not lost. They're just tracking it, you know? They're tracking it down.
Well, there's only a few hours left there's 3 hours left on Prime Big Deals Day, so maybe it's time for you to get a new suitcase.
Yeah, maybe I should.
I'm looking at American Tourister Stratum XLT expansion set, $184.
Yep.
Down 58%.
So I'm looking at too. I might get it. The funniest thing too is when I was trying to see what would constitute as lost to them and be like, so when can I actually make a claim? The first thing they're like is like, okay, after 21 days, then or 29 days, something like that. It's like then we can deem it as lost. But if we have a hint to its location, then we can extend it to 21 more days. I'm like, oh, you guys are gonna kill me, aren't you? It's like, what does that even mean?
Is there anything important in that suitcase?
A bunch of clothes, which is like fine. I could get, some of those clothes are a bit too old and I've been holding on to them. But the one that kills me is the garment bag full of suits that I've had over the years. That actually is sad.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, so unfortunate.
You should make Riot reimburse you.
They will not do that.
We got the Hungry Hobo here. The Hungry Hobo, where are you calling from?
Calling from Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Yeah, I'm calling in. My take is I think G2 will win Worlds, and I genuinely am not trolling. I think off of the last conversation, this is a great tie-in because my entire reason is I think it's the meta. I think this is the most flexible meta that we've had probably since G2's dynamic run in 2019. It's the most volatile meta in terms of flexibility. There's so many flex picks, which is really what G2 has excelled at historically, with things like Aurora, Galio, Yone flexes, and then with just the ability to have wild, crazy picks like the Twitch. I think it's extremely well suited for G2, so the meta is kind of 0.1, or not kind of, it is 0.1, and then maybe it's a little bit of a copium here for G2 in the West, but 2 of the last 3 Worlds, were won by teams that no one expected to win, EDG and DRX. And I think having teams that have chemistry and have been together, I guess DRX not really, deft a little bit with like Pioshik and stuff, but teams that have had the long time longevity, it really does pay off, and we really do have the history of showing that. I think some other contenders are obviously like teams like Gen G that have this long time chemistry. So like obviously those are the big walls standing in front of G2's way, but I genuinely think that they have the meta suited for them. Yikes, no longer a rookie. I think Broken Blade's probably playing the best he's potentially ever played, at least this year. Maybe not Worlds right now, but he's playing still extremely strong at Worlds. Mickey is just, he's an inter, but he's also a world-class support. And you don't really need to talk about Caps and Hans. It's just, ADCs do their thing. So I genuinely think G2 will win Worlds, get redemption from 2019, win in Europe, and finally get one for the West in the modern era.
I like the storyline at the end. Redemption in Europe 5 years after the tragedy of Paris.
Jamada, why will G2 win Worlds? He's giving you this opportunity.
No. You have to say why they're gonna win Worlds.
I mean, I feel like a lot of the points of the take that you've explained make sense. I think the main things that they have to catch up right now with the Eastern teams on, I mean, actually just the main thing. I think they can get away with having a shit bad early game, frankly. I think their mid-game macro is good enough to keep them competitive, even if they are going into these mid-games really far behind. It's the team fighting. I think it's the team fighting execution. I think it's their understanding, maybe not necessarily their understanding of win cons, but knowing when they need to pull the trigger around certain things and when they're going too far and when they need to just take a half a step back. Because I think G2 can be a very emotional team, this lineup, and they'll buy into their own hype in plays, and they will definitely step on their own toes a bit. And I think that's pretty much the major drawback for them against some of these heavy hitters like HLE, Genji, and BLG.
And you're saying that's how they're going to win Worlds. That's why they're going to win.
I'm saying they have to clean up those issues, and then they can win Worlds.
So you're saying they will clean up those issues, and then they'll win Worlds.
I would like to have faith in their ability to adapt and do that, yes. But as they are right now, I think getting to semifinals is reasonable.
Yeah.
If they, let's say, for argument's sake, draw the same side as LNG, and let's just say, for argument's sake, LNG get a easy draw and Gen G beat out whoever they get in quarters and they face LNG in semis. If they ban Yone, if LNG haven't found a good meta, read, and they're not allowed to get this like weird Galio angle or this angle where Scout's allowed to play primary engage, they could beat an LNG. And then it's just like, who is in the bracket? I think the bracket draw is more or less, and I know this feels like a cop-out answer, but I'm sorry. I don't know if I could see G2 beating a BLG, a Genji, or a HLE in a best of 5 if they don't have 2 whole series to analyze before they get there. And I know that seems weird, but I think that is just the way that G2 as a team and their coaching staff prep and their players operate. If they have more time to scout out a team like that, I think that they're willing to throw curveballs in a finals to not give them an easy way to just roll over them. We saw it kind of against T1, though granted they overcooked with the whole Kha'Zix LeBlanc nonsense, and hopefully they don't go too far. But I'm talking about reasonable, in meta, but kind of just on the fringe, things that Eastern teams are just going to be dizzy dealing with. Otherwise,
do you think
it's hard. Go ahead, yeah.
Do you think 2 best of 3s from BLG against opponents will be enough?
Yes.
If they were to draw them in round 1. I mean, BLG has not looked great. I know that Wade did the interview where he was like, our meta read's off. I'm like, dude, your map boy's off. Like, BLG's been really questionable on map. It's been really weird, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think we won't talk about BLG right now. Otherwise, I'll get a bit sad.
BLG is what I thought LNG would look like.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
To the take of the caller, at least in terms of surprise, you mentioned the EDG championship. I mean, they're the seed 1 LPL team, and I think they're the strongest looking LPL team. I think like the surprises that we've seen, DRX is a fair one, but the surprise that we've seen from World's winners have always still been within the ecosystem of China and Korea until like 2019, where it kind of, I mean, obviously they didn't win, but like the expectation, at least in that respect. This time around, G2 still, even in their like, they went up against HLE, and the way they lost their early game was actually wild to me, where they lose a quote unquote 2v2, like Yike gets caught out mid, and then you see clearly where the jungle is, and then somehow the jungler wraps around bot lane and kills them both. I'm like, the fuck happened here?
That was brutal.
The ways they're losing some of their early games is actually still weird. And if we go into a best of 5, Jamada already kind of mentioned all of the points, but I still want to see more from Yike in particular, and better team fighting. Those are the two things that I need to see to have confidence that they can win a best of 5 consistently. Not against like the top 3 teams, but even just if they get like the weakest top 8 team, and they get paired up against them, then I want to see consistency there. Otherwise, it just won't look great. They were close to making it to top 4 in MSI, but MSI is always going to be the quote-unquote easier tournament because it has like less opponents from China and Korea. So that's, for me, is the only harsh reality there. So I am not a hoper, sadly. Well, I'm hoping, but I'm not a believer.
I'm pretty much with Shimada. Like, I think that if they have a good draw, they can definitely top 4 with how they look right now, and the expectation should be top 8. But I think that the point about them not team fighting well enough is very true. Where I do think that G2 is good, if not better, than a lot of other teams is like how they play map. They've played a game where they were able to play sides and they were able to play Wombo, and they've won games playing multiple styles, which I think is always a great sign before you go into best of series, because it's going to be, well, depending on who you draw, you might be required to dig deep. I think that that's the best strength of G2 right now, that and their ability to find plays in the mid game. And I will say that BB's been really good. So that's been another big pro you can take away if you're a G2 fan. But is this team good enough to take down Genji, HLE, BLG? I don't think so. Not in the best of 5. So if they prove us wrong, good for G2.
Hobo, not, do you think G2 beats T1 tonight?
I do.
Okay.
How?
Well, I think honestly, Broken Blade. I think it's going to come down to just better drafting. I think the ability to have the flex picks historically, G2 has. When in volatile metas like this, they have historically always, I shouldn't say always, they usually beat T1, and it's extremely competitive. And I just really think the meta is really suited for them. And then also to a couple points real quick, I will concede that EDG was the first seed, but even in the quarterfinals that year, they were playing RNG, who was the MSI champion. They were not favored to win that matchup. I think the general census was they weren't going to win that. They were definitely like extreme underdogs against Damwon. So I do think there is some parallels, and I think the importance of chemistry is really underrated. T1 last year, just a few, it takes a couple years to really build that and have those ups and downs, and I just think they've had it's their time. But I will concede it is highly dependent on a good quarters draw. I think that is a variable that is uncertain for sure.
I think that the way that T1 is playing right now is built to beat G2. I don't know if Raz or Jamada would disagree, but the way that they're blitzing early games, and I think that the top pool for Zeus, like a lot of the champs that are meta are in his wheelhouse. I mean, Gnar is a big one. I think that they have to ban Gnar against Zeus in all their games. I don't know if BB can find edge, and T1's early games have been really, really good. I know that G2's mid games can get them back, but I do think that T1's early games have actually been really clean. I think that G2 will struggle.
Yeah, my big concern. I wonder how lane swaps are going to be handled. If let's just say hypothetical lane swaps don't happen. I think to answer your question, Travis the caller, on how the G2 beat T1, if we're gonna go by the last 3 games from T1, I think G2 need to actively plan around not allowing Owner to play the game. That would be my best shot if I was coaching staff. If I was coaching staff on G2, I would say, and it would be the most out of left field thing, because to most people, Yike has been underperforming, but Yike throughout a fair portion of especially recency towards season finals, he was still being put on carry champions throughout a lot of season finals. So maybe set him up to go through, have a good early game where you can actually dominate Owner 1v1 and just see how it goes. Because otherwise, yeah, I don't know. I think like you were saying, Cubby, they're systematically right now set up in a way where, yeah, probably T1 are going to have a really good time in the early game, and it's going to be about G2 mid games and how they come back.
My one like long shot would be give red side and give support counter pick, and then try and get a lane swap against Keria going for something where like maybe he plays Renata or like the Callista Nico where they're able to swap into it. I would not give Guma Callista. I just don't know like how I would go into that matchup against T1, because I really feel like Orianna and Gnar need to be denied from this team. Faker's not going to see Orianna for the entire tournament, so maybe it's like take blue side, try and B1 Ori, or I kind of would favor just taking red side and not giving Keria counter pick, because I do think if they get counter pick bot, it could be really bad. Because I have a lot of faith in the T1 top side this tournament. So I don't know. We'll see.
I agree. Red side's their best friend. I think counter pick bot, maybe counter pick top would help them a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Hobo,
it's either that or like B1 Ori.
Hobo, thanks
do
so much
you
for the
guys
call.
know who gets side select in first game? Sorry, just curious. G2, got it. Okay.
Yeah, they came from upper.
Interesting. Okay.
Thanks for the call. And anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Yeah. I want to shout out PrizePicks, Pagoda, NZXT. Also shout out to the entire LCS Mark Z. The Fan Fest was amazing. The finals were amazing this year. I had an amazing time. Also, just really great job. Really excited going to the Americas and next year. And just thanks everyone who's a part of this league.
Yeah. Thanks so much for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, thanks.
Also, a quick correction. I said G2 plays tonight. They don't play tonight. I don't know why I said that. I was looking at their thing on the bracket.
Yeah, it's Friday. They play.
Yeah. So it's 48 hours or so from now, a little bit over. All right, cool. Really quickly before we get into our next call, our final call, before we switch over to the prediction show, which I'll have some other friendly guests joining us for. I do want to shout out NZXT because we were just talking about them. I think Jamada would probably call them NZXT. You guys use Z, right? That's like a thing.
Yeah, I think we definitely use Z more, but it's interchangeable. And if it's a brand thing like this, then we would say NZXT.
Oh, okay.
By the way, I'm Canadian, and we also say Z, so good luck with that.
Yep.
Anyway, NZXT, or as some might say NZXT, which is I'm probably breaking some brand rule that they don't want me to break right now. It's a joke. But the point is that they have a really cool thing going on right now. And this is through Sunday. They have the NZXT upgrade event, which is available through, as I said, Sunday, but actually only today. For 2 days, they have the Prime Day special that's going on. And you can maybe go rush over there and grab it right now if you are watching, where you can get $200 off customs that have a 4080 or 4090 in it, up to 50% off some hybrid series upgrades. They have all sorts of really great deals. And then for a while now, they're going to be doing these gaming gear bundles where you'll be able to grab keyboards and mice together, audio stuff together, monitors together, all for special amounts of savings. And then what's really cool is that my code, which is Travis5, stacks with all these sales and discounts. So that doesn't normally happen. Normally, including with my previous hardware partner, my code just wouldn't work if something was on sale or something wasn't working on. It would be like, okay, you can only apply one promotional deal at a time. But with this, you can save 5% on top of the savings that you're getting by using code Travis5 at checkout, which is pretty sick for people who are trying to get a new PC or get some stuff to upgrade what you've got going on. There's all sorts of really cool things going. So thank you so much to NZXT for sponsoring the show. Really appreciate that. But yeah, this is the Tuesday through Sunday. They've got a bunch of great deals going, and you can potentially save hundreds of dollars by using going during these deals and using my code, which is Travis5. And if you do purchase anything through NZXT, please use the link in the description or in Twitch and YouTube chat that you're seeing right now, or in the podcast thing. That using that link lets them know that you purchased because of the show, and that's how we get them to continue to stick around, because they realize that you all support me, and then they will support me, and everyone will support me. And that's what we're trying to do here on Hotline League. All right, let's get into the final call of the night. It is none other than Merlad 77 as Cubby's rushing off to grab them. Thank you, by the way, to Tahu for the membership. Elias Tries resubbed for 6 months in advance, which is crazy. Thank you, Elias. Christabel for 82 months. Subbed for 82 months. Esparts, row to you. Tyza, awesome. Thank you, everybody, for the subs. All right, so we got Merlad here. Merlad, where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Bellingham, Washington.
Bellingham, Washington. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Housespawn is actually a great coach for Team Liquid, and is showing why he's able to hold Team Liquid together during kind of a rough world showing so far. And I think it's just the socials team kind of did him dirty. Showing that clip in a short form without additional context maybe would be better placed for like a wider documentary or like end of worlds recap.
Gotcha. All right. Do you want to elaborate on any of this before we dive in?
I mean, just from like the great coach point of view, I watch a lot of traditional sports as well. And the way he's talking and the way we've seen him talk in other long form videos is in line with some of the like greater coaches out there. His way of making the team make more centered, act like you've been here before, things we've heard him say before. He has a great track record of being just a very like calming presence, even when he is obviously very worked up. Kind of his delivery, maybe very Australian, maybe doesn't work as much in a Western audience or an American audience as much. But yeah, I think he's the reason why the team isn't struggling as much, even though they are. But if you've seen APA interviews, like with you, he was a lot more calm and centered versus like last year where he was a lot more depressed. And so I just think that Spawn is part of that.
Yeah. I think I agree with your take completely. I think when it comes to the social teams, a lot of the times, every team, social teams, wants to put out any level of coaching content because they're like, hey, this is what it's like behind the scenes. But they're never going to show literally anything of substance because obviously there's going to be a competitive edge to it, of showcasing like anything that's like gameplay related, or even if you're just showing like a more vulnerable side of the team, that's stuff that just never gets out on air. So you just see some things that like it's enough for people to just be like Twitter coaches who are like, well, actually, like I would have done this. I would have approached this situation much differently. You have to approach it with care, or like actually, it's not healthy to play games. They should be playing less games. That's how they get better. Like it's like the moment I start reading this shit, it's just it's fucking awful because they don't know what Spawn does behind the scenes. They don't know how the team wants him to be coaching, because a lot of the times, like if you ask any of these players, they want to be pushed, especially at this time of the year. They want to be given feedback directly. Like they want to be told what they're doing wrong. And you know, some players are a lot more, you know, they do better with like feedback sandwiches where you tell them, you pat them on the back first and then you give them feedback and then you pat them on the back second. But that's not who Core is. That's not who these players are. He knows their players better than you fucking do. That's actually the reality. And I know Spawn because I've worked underneath him when he was in Australia, and he's somebody that has always espoused mental health. He's always talked about mental health and put it as a priority first. So like, then people are saying, actually, you're putting more pressure on them, and they're gonna burst under the pressure. All the way. That's a 5-second clip. What are you fucking talking about? It is the most maddening thing anytime I see this bullshit. It is actually the most maddening thing. So. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. But yeah, I'm just gonna leave it. I was about to still go on, but you continue.
I think like Raz, I could probably go on for hours about this specific topic. league community and the mentality around like the coach to player relationship is just really, really coddled. I think it's.
Oh yeah.
It seems like people expect this super. Back in my day, if I put a foot wrong, the belt would come out. Like they've not been there, right? And I think that lack of, again, things like that as an example, very, very extreme on my end. But that, and I think the other big thing is just not having competed in a actual competitive environment themselves, like specifically in traditional sports. But even in esports, trust me, you sit in a scrim and you hear how players talk to each other.
Oh yeah,
you will be blown back. What you see is what you are allowed to see, and I think in Spawn's case, even what he said to Core on stage, I'm going to assume, because I haven't watched the game that he was specifically talking about, but Spawn's someone that I have actually a fair amount of respect for, because I like the philosophy that he has outwardly, and I can rock with it quite heavily. And that's the thing I look towards the most in a coach. What he said was probably very tangible feedback for Core right there in that moment. So frankly, I think people just always overblow this for no reason other than they think that everyone needs to be babied when it comes to getting feedback when something bad has just happened to someone. In this case, like losing a game. And it, like, this mentality around that needs to change. I don't think it's ever going to change because, again, the majority of people that complain about this stuff are probably not competitors. And if you've not competed before, then frankly, I think this is one specific discourse that you either need to stay clear of or try and at the very least get educated on.
Yeah. I mean, I would say...
and it was after they won. Sorry to cut you. It was after they won.
Yeah.
Double fuck you, who cares?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, actually, double fuck you, who cares?
Actually true.
Like, if the level of gameplay was bad and they still won, trust me, that actually players would prefer to lose if they played bad, by the way. Like, so many, unless the situation that is like, winning this game gives me a championship. I promise you to God, if it's a game where they have to play more games after that, they walk off the stage embarrassed that they won and showed off what they showed. So
yes, true.
Spawn was definitely in his right mind to say what he said, and I don't think there was any issue with it.
Yeah, I'll just say I've been told worse from my middle school golf coach. So I think that's what I would say. That's
wow, you played golf, Travis?
I would say
that was about you and not about something I said on stream earlier.
What? Okay. Really quickly, Cubby, before you engage with this, there's some people who are confused about what happened here or what we're referencing, and that makes sense because this went viral on Twitter. But I think I saw maybe a post about it on Reddit, but it's not like a lot of people would understand what we're talking about. So, do you want to give context?
There was a video that Team Liquid posted about Spawn talking to Core after the win. Core's cleaning up his stuff. And Spawn's like, dude, I don't know what's going on. Like, we aren't hitting our buttons right. We got to play like 700 hours this upcoming week as a team. Like, we just have to play the game more. And it was like they posted a post-game discussion of Spawn with Core. And for whatever godforsaken reason, it blew up. And it was mostly, I know Raz said he mostly saw it on Twitter. I woke up because my schedule was degenerate. And my For You page had like 15 tweets, all quote retweeting this video. And I could not will myself to even talk about it because it was so pointless. And everyone on Twitter was like, oh, this is fine. Whereas Reddit was like losing their mind, which I found funny. I don't know if you got stuff about it, Travis, before I get into it a little bit. But
no, I'll echo a little bit of what Shimada said, but with my own twist on this, which is I think that the Reddit community and the League of Legends esports community and just obviously the internet as a whole these days, like over the course of the last 20 years, the internet has just shrunk in terms of what their attention span is and what they're willing to draw conclusions based off of. And I'll give a good example, which TikTok. Is it used to be that at Worlds or LCS or whatever, I would do an interview, it would get maybe a good headline, it would go up on the subreddit, and then it would drive a tremendous amount of traffic to the video because people would be like, oh, what is this? I want to click this. And they'd watch the full interview. And I see this not just with my own content, but with everybody else's content as well. It'll get a bajillion upvotes and then get very few views because what has happened is people are just reacting to that headline And I bring all this up because it feels very similar to this situation where people are watching the video, but they're watching the tiniest bit of it. They have not watched a lot of other Team Liquid content. They don't have the full context for how Spawn works, for what the mentality is of the players on that team, how like this coaching situation works here, and they're just having an immediate visceral emotional reaction to what was it, like 40 seconds or something, whatever the amount of time that the clip was, and they're using that to just infer everything else about the way the coaching situation works, about the way that this all functions, about everything, and they're drawing really big conclusions based off of that, which I think is perhaps the inappropriate way to go about assessing the coaching situation on Team Liquid.
I can't, like, I literally just cannot fathom how you can see that clip and be like, oh, this is bad, you know? Like, what are we talking about on this podcast about TL? Like, they did not play good against Pain, who are the worst team left in the tournament. TL is a team that has had expectations to hopefully make it to quarterfinals. Like, they're 0-2. They barely beat the worst team at the tournament. And he's talking to his captain, who has won a world championship and has been a veteran for 10 years. Like, dude, we got to work harder if we want to get out. Like, what the fuck did he say that was bad? I cannot fathom that the fan base was like, oh my God, like, congrats. You guys saw, like, maybe 10% of what Spawn actually does as a real fucking coach, and your reaction to it was visceral. I cannot fathom it. I really cannot.
It makes me mad too.
Yeah, it does. Like, I don't get it. Like, if you were mad at that, you have not competed at anything in your life. I don't know what else to tell you.
I don't think I've liked a single, I'm trying to think, team content around their coaching staff. If it ever exists, it's always been something that I've hated. Because, like, I'll see, like a streamer, like, watch it, like a co-streamer or someone just watch it and try to see and glean anything out of it and be like, man, why is this coach silent in this room? Like, why are they saying absolutely nothing? Like, where is the leadership? I'm like, dude, they fucking just completely cut it to make it so they're not saying literally anything. It will never show a thing. It's just the most useless form of content.
We kind of touched on this topic because it was sort of in relation to the JoJo stuff a few weeks ago. Well, at least when I guessed it. I don't know how many episodes you guys managed to do, because obviously, Travis, you were in Berlin.
No, it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
But, like, again, I just don't think the community actually has a solid understanding of what coaching roles are supposed to fulfill inside of those environments, specifically pertaining to League as well. So it just extra, like, skews the perception, again, of what interactions are actually deemed as, like, acceptable. And I think it just it's like not even additive, it feels multiplicative. Like, everything just times into each other. And again, if you as a viewer, like a regular, like, you know, Silver Andy, never kicked a ball or never competed in any kind of sport or anything where, you know, you're kind of fighting for yourself, and you see this and you're like, wow, I don't like the way my favorite player was just spoken to. It just puts that's the kind of thing that kind of gets spewed on socials when it comes to this stuff, and there's no reasonable take around it almost ever.
Yeah.
I thought, I mean, personally, I thought it was cool that TL shared that.
Yes.
That was a real moment. I actually enjoyed that. I completely get what Raz is saying about people, like, trying to read into it or whatever. I appreciated that for what it was, because it was actually fucking real.
Dude, and it's so annoying. People won't do this now. Like, it's so, like, it's so aggravating because so many of the things have gotten sanitized and we don't see the real shit anymore and all this stuff. And then they put this out and people are like, no, I don't want to see that. And then the takeaway internally, I'm sure, will just be like, all right, we shouldn't have tweeted that. So I guess in the future, like, let's make sure that we have review on all those videos before they go live. And it's just aggravating because then what people see are these, like, very incorrect versions of what's going on at teams, and it's just it's very frustrating.
The real travesty of the video,
we don't use that word,
is that they
it's offensive.
my bad. The real catastrophe of the video really is that they didn't even edit out the cap cut. Like,
no, I was going to make that
at
joke.
the end of the video.
I was going to ask you guys, what do you think of their choice of editing software, though, for the video?
That was more controversial.
that's the real controversial take,
dude. You know how pissed that fucking editor or that social media person has got to be about that situation? They're just like, not only do I have to deal with all this stuff, but everybody's memeing about the fucking CapCut thing. And I get it, because CapCut sneaks that shit onto the end. They do it. You reinstall it, you use it on a new device, you have to go in, you have to manually change the setting. You're rushing to get this video out, and it's there. And then you can't delete it, because then people are going to accuse you of deleting it because of that. You probably don't notice it for 10 minutes after the video's got all in this engagement. You're like, God damn it, I hate myself.
Yeah. CapCut.
Honestly, I might leave CapCut in some of my cuts just to get more engagement, piss the people off.
Dude, I should start. I should have done that with my next video. That would have been so good.
Yeah.
What's a good meme about that? You have Spawn screaming about CapCut. That's what Team Liquid should put out. They should put out a video of Spawn. They should go super meta, where Spawn screaming at the social media manager about leaving the CapCut video tag on, and then they should tweet that out with the CapCut.
That's
thing
he's like, you made me look so bad because you had the CapCut.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you have CapCut still left in. You need to have 700 more videos in the next 3 days if you want to be better at this. Like,
oh my god, that's so good.
In the next 3 days, I need to do 700 more videos.
That would have been the greatest way to address the drama around it, is just by like memeing it. All right.
Bandicam.
So sorry, Merlad, we've left you behind in this conversation. Do you have anything you would add before I give you your shoutouts?
No, I mean, I actually agree with the realness of it being a positive, even though I said like they did him dirty. I do actually see these moments. I don't play League of Legends. I never really have. I am too toxic. I don't play well with others.
That's a win.
But I've been watching for off and on a decade and really got back into it in the last 3-4 years. I'm an oldie. And the reason I watch League and really like watching sports in general is these moments of like real players, real coaches, and those storylines involved. Like, that's why I stick around. So don't really want it to go away.
What brought you back, out of curiosity?
I mean, I got kind of back in during the pandemic. The first time I watched was way back, like PAX West, when it was PAX Prime, when League was there, and I was like went with a friend and got into Cloud9, boohoo there. And then kind of got back into it. I have a friend from work, and we kind of banter because he's Team Liquid, and so that also helps. But yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much for the call, Merlad. Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, shout out to my husband. We celebrated our second wedding anniversary yesterday.
Let's go!
Shout out to my bestie, Aaron, that I just mentioned, for letting me be a temporary Team Liquid fan during the C9 No Worlds drought. And shout out to Niski. I miss you. Come back.
Honestly, there's a chance he will. Who knows? I've not heard anything, but I feel like there's always every offseason there's a Niski might come back rumor.
We did not talk about offseason. I haven't heard a lot this past week, but there is a lot of like stuff that's up in the air that I find interesting. And I saw a list of like people that like really mainstay LEC pros that likely will not be back, which made me very sad. But I am really curious what ends up happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Merlad left on her own. Okay. Well, thank you, Merlad, for the call, and we'll catch you next time. All right, folks, if you're watching live, please stick around because we have a new cool show that we're going to be doing here in a second. But, and if you're not watching live, then go find that new show because it's up on YouTube. But I do want to give a round of shout outs to everybody here. Cubby, what do you want to shout out?
We didn't talk about media that we've been enjoying, but I will once again shout out The Penguin. This is actually a really, really good show. So please watch The Penguin. It's actually really good.
Dude,
besides that,
on that front, I binged Only Murders in the Building season 3 and all the way up to season 4, and I also watched Agatha All Along, which I think is maybe decent. A little too short of the episodes, but it is decent. Like the Catherine Hahn, is that it? Her name?
Yeah.
And Aubrey Plaza, just they're so good in that. So I think it's worth it for them alone.
I appreciate that they're willing to be weird. So
yeah.
It has been interesting. Yeah, so media's been fun. Also, I've been binge watching House of Cards, which I've never seen before. But anyway, shout out
Don't
to...
watch the last season.
Okay,
Sorry.
I'll keep that in mind. Shout out to you guys, especially Jabana on the banger schedule, and then Raz getting back from Worlds. Nice work at Worlds as well. And yeah, appreciate you guys coming on. This is a lot of fun. Thanks for everyone tuning in on the Wednesday.
Yeah. Raz, how about you?
Much love to everybody that I worked with on the broadcast. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Of course, a lot of fun being on episodes like these. You know, I may have been slightly tardy because of my sleep schedule that apparently is still doomed. Actually, oh my god. Let's pray the same standards are not put on me, because I would be ruined. I would be out of every contract.
They marked you down, mate. Travis and Matt.
That's true.
You just don't know about it yet.
Gone. I'd be gone. They probably like, Raz has been. Actually, I've been on time every episode. Yeah. Travis is coping. All right.
We're gonna take you off this or that.
He's on time as a chatter too.
True. For the most part. So yeah, no, shout out, and also shout out to the, a lot of friends who are in Tampa holding it down. Stay safe. Okay. That shit is scary. So
yeah.
Jamada?
Yeah, same thing actually. Shout out to the people out in on the west side of Florida. That shit looks terrifying. So stay safe. If you're in an evacuation zone, it's probably too late to leave, but if you can't leave, leave. And yeah, other than that, you know what? Shout out Nicole for sending Rez home early from Worlds. That's my that's my shout out. Riot talent manager, love her. And otherwise, I don't really have too much to shout out. Jake's in Europe. In Europe, I mean in Berlin, doing those interviews with Ruddy. They're all really fun. Check them out if you haven't. They've been floating around the internet for the last couple of days, and they're bloody quality. So yeah.
Numi timed out Yanya for making a comment that said everyone should watch Attack on Titan again and find out how Travis and the Beast Titan look alike. But I think it's because she did not see the clip. Oh, it said you deleted the message. You should undelete the message, yeah. I guess, because people don't realize that was a comment that Xiaohu made in the video that I did about everyone's favorite animes. Those videos have been popping off, by the way. So it's been really cool to see.
Nice.
Yep.
They've been good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you go back to ask Faker about his books, or did you already have that in the?
I already had that. Pen? It was so funny because everybody's like, ask Faker about his books. Ask this guy won't ask Faker about his books. Blah 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 blah. And I'm just sitting there on that clip, and I'm like waiting for it. Yeah.
That is funny.
I did not. Riot does not let me drag the players out in front of the stage like that unless it's asset day. By the way, Storm update. Jordan is still okay. She says the internet and the power has been going out off and on, but. Apparently the storm hasn't died down at all and just keeps going. It's just sort of sitting on top of Tampa, so street is flooded. And it's just exhausting, I'm sure, for everybody over there. So shout out again to Jordan. Shout out to our sponsors, Pagoda, NZXT, and PrizePicks. Stick around for the show afterwards. Shout out to the people that I got to hang out with in Berlin. I'll be back for finals. And yeah, we're going to be doing some cool shows over the next week or so we'll stay tuned for that, but thanks everybody for watching, and we'll catch you next week on Monday. We'll be back on Monday.